I used to be the one. I used to be your getaway dreamer. I couldn't get enough, thinking that we would last forever.
Resubscription received. Apparently you are doing something right, Captain.
My little bonus support. I admire the extra preparations you do. You are the best.
Hostile forces detected. Arming raid defenses.
Hello, everyone. I'd set up a different audio source. But it looks like everything's working. Looks like everything is working for this. You know one thing I never did? I never fixed this overlay. So while I do that, big thank you to everyone who came in to support. Barrett started things off with a 72-month resub. And then Mike Sixers came in, tipped $27.41, converted from zloty. A little bonus support. I admire the extra preparations, EG, are the best. Thanks, Mike. And Cranky Ducklings with the raid. Hello, everyone. Yes, the Tonberry gets 0.0001 millimeters away from Dimitri every stream. I think it's closer, not away. But yeah. So, someone do the math on how long that'll take for it to poke Dimitri in the head. Hello, everyone. I used to have a chat box. I used to have a chat box that was here. And then at some point... Nope. It disappeared. It's so tiny. It's for ants. Blah, 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 blah. There we go. Blah, 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 blah. Nice. Nailed it. Perfect. Imagine it made having chat box easier. Imagine. I was gonna start singing Imagine, but I decided not to. I do like some Beatles and individual Beatles songs. Imagine is one of them. But overall, that's not one of my hot takes. I'm not really a big fan of the Beatles. Yeah. Yeah, now if anyone's being a dick, it's gonna be visible proof on stream. Unfortunately, I can't really combine the YouTube stream as well, so that doesn't really... YouTube stream getting short end of the stick once again. But anyway, so I went perusing around for downloads, for replays for this stream. I made a horrible mistake, guys. I thought just maybe RSL would be giving out replay packs like weekly, or maybe like GSL does after each day. Not that I can find anyway. So I assume they're going to send them out at the end of the tournament, which I believe is this weekend, which would still work. But if they're at all late, that means I can't really study them. I have to go look at the VODs, which is just worse. But anyway. No, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I gave them $10. How dare I? Hypocrite. Let's see here. What looks fun? There is a Tonberry sneaking up on my cat, yeah. It is. You heard Loco saying it too? Yeah, okay. I thought I saw someone casting the replays, but maybe it was something else. So, yeah, I gave them $10, canceled the subscription, so hopefully I still get the replay pack because it's still a month long, but we'll find out.
Warning, full infamous programs detected.
If I don't get them before EWC, that's $10 wasted. Jesus. Jesus. Vale, thank you for the gifted sub. Alright, so we got Beyond Solar, Clem Solar. Now, Clem Solar actually looks like it was quite good. So these are from the Wardy replay pack. I was also able to get the KSL replay pack. So, yeah. I don't know what it was from, though. So, I will assume that it was a best of 5. I can see when it was played. Or at least it was packaged. That might be different than when it was played. Ah, God, okay, that doesn't help me. Oh no, 16. Oh, okay, I think it was one of the Warty Mondays. And those end in best of 5s? That's all I need to know. They do end in best of 5s. Okay, and then I also have to determine in what order this was. I think these are the minutes, so I think it goes top to bottom for me. Figured it out, guys. I got it. I've had worse replay packs. I've had worse. The type that don't do any amount of organizing whatsoever. It's just like 20, you know, Beyond versus Rainers or something in a row, and you're just like, when? How? What? Let's make sure all the settings are right, which I haven't changed them in a while, so they really should be. Mouse sensitivity. Oh, wait, no. Mouse sensitivity is supposed to stay the same. Whoop! And then you guys should be able to hear everything. Should be hearing it now. Okay. I think we're ready. We got it. Never fear, the cat cam's still here. Alright guys, we got a TVZ that was played out a couple of weeks ago, and it was part of the Warty TV Mondays, so no spoilies if you actually saw it. If you didn't, good news. It's a whole new experience for both you and me, because I didn't see it either. And by the looks of things, there was a decent enough best of 5. We'll find out how decent. In the bottom left, coming in as, my opinion, the favorite, it is Clem. And in the top right, we do have Solar. Obviously, both of these players going to EWC is one of the reasons that I chose these replays to cast. As much as it is fun casting SOS or Scarlet, there's some Scarlet replays in here. Unfortunately, they did not make it into EWC, so they are dead to me. Yeah, I'm just kidding. But for all the studying purposes, they are not as useful. Because, I mean, as fun as they are to cast, too, I'm not sure anyone's really going to be copying or stealing any of their builds. It's a possibility. I mean, it's certainly not out of the realms of possibility at all. But anyway, beside that. So we got ourselves a good old Korea versus Europe. Or is Clem in Korea? I have actually forgotten. Clem was in Korea at some point in time, which I know is very helpful. But I don't remember. I don't remember if he's still there or not. I think he is, yeah. I think you're right. I remember saying with confidence that he was, but I just don't remember how long ago that was. Okay, thanks guys. So Clem is in Korea, so that's awesome. Obviously it's still Europe versus Korea, but it is on the Korean server, which means we don't have any ping issues. Clem has been, no doubt, still improving his TVZ, although doesn't really need improvement while in Korea. More so people would consider Korea a training ground for like TVT, but that with Clem, I mean, it's actually probably more likely that he will play Protoss versus Terran unless he's just really tried to grind out TVT in like 2 or 3 weeks leading up to EWC, because he very recently has been playing Protoss versus Terran. So, yeah, that's my expectation, is him playing Protoss versus Terran. So as far as being in Korea, why else would you want to do it? I mean, it still is some of the best players on the ladder, pretty reliably as well. Whereas Europe, there's a lot of waiting going on for the top tier players. Very unfortunate that the best times over there. And it's also a place where you can hopefully just buckle down. I mean, you could do the same thing at home technically, but you know how it is. Go to a different place, be surrounded by a couple of other pro gamers, you know, kind of get that pseudo team house effect, which I assume is kind of going on as Rainer is over there as well. And they're making sure to keep their party in Korea to a minimum, I'm sure. Young men would never. But seriously, a lot of sites are on EWC, as it is the last Premier tournament that we know of. I'm not sure if anything that's been announced is in the Premier category. Literally, as far as Wikipedia goes, as far as the actual like prize pool amount that is required to be called Premier, but I think more in the non-literal sense, which is just kind of, you know, the whole shebang. The offline, the talent's there, the players are there, the production's there. It's a big shebang. It's the last one we're going to know of for a while yet. It is TVZ, so I figured there was some time to not talk about the actual game, and I was absolutely right about that. There was a drone that was killed and a couple of lings that almost got this SCV, but that's right up to date. There you go. That's it. 3CC 211 after that, and Solar is not going to do anything to punish that. There are builds that punish it, and Solar actually has brought it out once or twice in a best of 5, and versus Clem, if I recall correctly. I'm thinking like a Ling Bailing bus, actually. But it is so rare, and it is such a cheese, it's such an all-in, that actually doing it is still... A lot of Zergs are still hesitant, I think rightfully hesitant to do so. Although they can tell kind of early on what build this is by a couple of things that they see and they don't see. So, for instance, they don't see any supply depots at the front. That means it's a third CC unless it's some real big brain play. But you don't have to assume big brain when Clem is so good with this build. The second thing that you would be able to tell to a certain degree is by how many Hellions are out. And again, there could be some mind games with that. You know, they only show 2 Hellions or they even show 0 Hellions. And they're actually like stocking them up waiting for like a Hellbat attack. But that would be extremely rare as well. So yeah, you can figure it out kind of quickly what exactly is going down here, but that still doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go switch gears into an all-in. So at this point, you know, Clem does more often than not get away with a 3CC build, not just Clem, Terrans, I should say. Terrans do. And then it's kind of more so which 3CC build is really the scariest, I guess. Like, there's the 3CC build that has far faster engineering base than what Clem is getting, and that is pretty freaking scary, especially if they follow up with an 8-Rax. And then there's this, which actually hits just slightly before 530. Would have been I guess a little faster. No, because the medevacs are actually coming over. So yeah, he hit this as fast as possible by walking the Marines over. That did not surprise Solar, so kudos to him. I mean, Solar, as I said, trying to tell the exact details of what is presumably a 3CC 211. You know 16 Marines are going to be on the way, and it's just a matter of being in position with just enough to really work against it. And by just enough, that's usually Queens and a handful of Lings. That faster +1 Carapace is also a very typical response to this, and Solar is going to add on a Baneling Nest, which for some people out there might be like, well, doy, why would you mention that? But there is actually more and more experimentation with Baneling-less defenses and entire games, actually, versus Terran. So that's been an interesting development. And that's something that Solar is a big fan of, apparently. He is going to get that typical hooks as fast as he can, as soon as the Baneling Nest was done. So far, great defense on the 4-base setup, but Clem's 16 Marines are still alive, and they are still being a bother as we add on a couple of more barracks. The next question is whether or not we're going to have a 4th CC or a 3CC 8-Rax. It is going to be a 4th CC. A second factory is already on the way. So we're going to have a macro game. Oops, excuse me. Yeah, I'm good. So this is a very non-issue at this point, especially if the medevacs are even running out of juice. Solar would be happy to punish this if his Queens would actually be able to sneak up like that, but they are not going to be able to do that. So he's primarily focusing on getting his drone count, which does need to get higher. It does. I guess he was anticipating maybe this move out as well, although this isn't bringing the tank. This is him just staying at home mostly. But he was anticipating some other move out because he did have a lot of army, Banelings included, for what was still the 16 Marines. And so you can see that he really doesn't have a concern with all of these little tips, these taps. And that would mean that his drone count would like to be higher much faster. just because we are talking about an almost even worker count with the Terran up until this point, which is not usually what you want to hear. Yeah, if you're cheering for the Zerg player. But 4 bases have been taken. 5th base is going to be taken. 75 drones. Oh, about to hit 90. There it is. There it is. One medevac does manage to get sniped there by the Queens, so that was fortunate. And Solar is still deflecting most of these drops. I mean, these drops aren't really hoping for a whole lot, but they're keeping tabs on the Zerg. I mean, without these 2 drops, or without the initial drop, the creep would be here. The creep would literally be here right now, probably. And be here, be here, be here, be here. There'd be another base already here. You know, you obviously can't just let the Zerg player do whatever you want, although you are, as a Terran player in this position, kind of doing whatever you want. It is a battle of pure macro at this point. And so, you know, right now, Solar is definitely on the defensive. This isn't really about the main push as of yet. Even this, although this is a lot more intimidating, probably will not end the game. Solar, once again, trying to take care of these drops. Maybe he was trying to build a Spore Crawler there. Loses a couple of drones. Sends a lot of army off to the left. No, he does keep him at home. He does need to keep him at this right side. And he does. Tank is not sieged yet. Wood of Mine's just now burrowing. And this is a decent attack. Woohoo! I was worried about the Wood of Mines for a hot second. But they do explode. And the tank somehow manages to siege up. So Clem maybe thought that Solar was a little more out of position, or was a little more concerned about the double drop, should have been cleaned up at this point. Kind of raced ahead. Still holds on to the position, which is most important. Solar really wants to get this out so he can just breathe a little bit, get the creep spread back up, and it looks like that's exactly what's going to happen with the tank gone. No Wood of Mines aside from that. That is going to be a pushback. Clem, though, reinforcing. He might be down 20 supply-ish, 15 actually, but it is entirely in the workers. His 4th CC is now planetary. 2-2 is on the way ahead of his opponent's +2 melee. And that is the nature of things in this matchup. And Solar is trying to get 2 lurkers. Juno Glands being a focus as well. A couple of Vipers already ready to go. Clem is eventually going to get maxed out, including a more bulky army as well. A lot of Marauders in there too. And that's where things are really going to get, I think, a lot more sketch. I mean, you're really going to have to focus very heavily on how you take these engagements from Solar. I mean, not that he hasn't been needing to focus in the last few engagements, but it's more like, okay, Wood of Mines can't pop off, either micro against them or try to kill them with the Banelings, and then try and get a big surround, right? Like, try and get a setup. But when the Marauders are included, it kind of feels like the Zerg player has to do a lot more of that, like, go forth, pull back, go forth, pull back, go back, you know, unless they get a really amazing surround, which Clem should never allow to happen. But there's the other element that we are building up to, but is not here as of yet, which is the Lurker. You know, and the Lurker's obviously going to change the way that these engagements happen. It's not just about having that really nice concave or a surround and trying to get the jump on your opponent, which, speaking of, a little bit of a jump here on some of the units that were left on the left side, trying to traverse the map. Parasitic Bomb also effective. Clem not paying attention there. Actually, he was. He just missed microed for a hot second. He was also trying to pay attention to the drop to the top left, which is going to be taken care of as well. Solar so far doing a great job defending his bases. Now, what is a little concerning is just that the creep spread still isn't that far out. So this is just one of those, you know, it looks like he's doing a fantastic job, and he is. But this can go either way really fast. Clem could stop paying attention to a drop, lose all map presence on one side of the map, and maybe even all map presence on all sides of the map too, right? If he really makes a lot of mistakes. But then for Solar, it's like, I'm doing a great job, I'm doing a great job, I'm doing a great job. You don't replant the creep back up here. Suddenly the army hits you when you can't notice it. You have no scouting prior to it actually being on top of the hatchery. Then you're in trouble. But it looks like Solar is going to be the one to make a move as the drop had to return home and the main push was pushed back. Solar thought there might be an opportunity at that 3rd base. There is not. Unfortunately, a lot of SimCity and a rather sizable army was still being created. You know, the drop did pull back, drop out. Ghosts are being formed as well, so now you gotta really second guess some of those dives. If you dive and you make an incorrect assumption, the snipes are going to be brutal. This was Climax trying to go out after the Ling Baneling. He's going to be able to split off of creep and mitigate the damage here. Wood of Mine starting to help out a little bit, but there weren't a lot to begin with, and the medevacs might want to pick up. Woohoo! That's exactly what they do. Parasitic Bomb, once again, 2 Parasitic Bombs actually made this very, very, very close. 1 medevac full of units does go down, and many medevacs are injured as well. Clem losing a lot of his defensive setup with that. Frenzy actually was research. I kind of forgot about that, but that is research, and that is going to be used to try and escape, which isn't a bad use of it at all. Now, Clem was in maybe a little bit of trouble. Things are getting a little topsy-turvy, but he's got the Sim City. He's got a couple of splash units, like the Planetary obviously could have helped out if there's anything over there, but the tank and a Widow Mine over here too. I mean, he was... I wouldn't say close to being broken exactly, but that was one of those moments where you wonder if this is going to lead to a lost command center. Perhaps that 5th would not get on location as fast. Maybe this command center would be blown up just so Solar can say he got. Maybe the SCVs aren't accounted for while you're microing the army, which is the second target there for Solar. And it looks like Clem has stopped the bleeding and is now in his own defensive position. Solar has now had a lot of time to get bases, drones, and creep spread as he continues the onslaught, not waiting for lurkers as he's seen the opportunity, but he does have the possibility of adding those in. More parasitic bombs causing issues with the Medivacs, a lot of them going down. As simply put, Clem has not had time to repair Medivacs. Because Solar has chosen to go for just an onslaught, again, not waiting for those lurkers, which ended up being a very good decision. Those Medivacs have never had time to just stay still and be repaired by SCVs, which Clem is usually pretty good about doing. And he's always been, just rapidly collecting his forces together. So he has not been able to stop Medivacs from running into parasitic bombs. So that's in total 14 Medivacs killed. That's actually really impressive, I would say. That would either be a longer game, or at this point, I would say more like 5 maybe have died. One to a drop that was, not microed immediately, and then a couple other parasitic bombs and Hydras killing them. But this is pretty good damage. Something that usually Terran players don't have to consider, but it absolutely is worth the consideration. Drop up to the top left, gets a very quick and easy kill, so that's some good news for Clem on the offensive, as he has been entirely defensive, but he is defensive on 5 bases, so that is pretty comfortable. Resources lost, actually very, very close. So this is still a situation where Clem does have to worry about being broken, but he's also not necessarily winning the resource war outright, right? So he actually has to be worried about being starved. Not going to happen soon on 5 bases, but it is eventually going to happen. Lurkers did finally make an appearance, 8 of them available. I think a couple just died, actually. Abducts on Ghost going down, too. The Viper, unfortunately, does get sniped, but I think it abducted like a bunch. 3 Ghosts, I want to say. So that was pretty effective. Clem still has a strong overall supply, but I am wondering where the rest of it is. Some off to the left side looking for another snipe on a hatchery, perhaps more just coming in as reinforcements. This just does not look like 126 army supply, right? Like, am I crazy? This looks so small. Another factor. Command center went down. Factory's going to go down. This command center is also going to be in trouble, and the lurkers are tightening the noose here. Clem needs to defend this place right here. This is his reinforcement point. If he's going to be rallying units into lurkers, he's going to have an extremely tough time. That drop saw that there was no corner base to take out, so then set its sights on the 5th or 4th, whatever this was. Unfortunately, doesn't find any damage and almost dies in the process. As I said, this is just... Clem's army. I don't know how that is a 140 army supply army. This is straight up confusing to me. Now it looks a little bit better as he tries to send it just full hog all the way into the lurkers. It does work out. The risk, the gamble worked out. The lurkers were destroyed, and the follow-up was not there. No Banelings still available. Ling Hydra forced to flee from what ended up being quite a bit of bio left over. I guess when it actually collected together, it did look a little bit better, but for the longest time, it looked like such a small army. Resources lost does favor Clem a little bit more after that hold. 4,000 to the hole there for Solar. That was really not bad at all for a Zerg player. Not bad at all. He has kept a certainly decent drone count. I think he lost a couple towards the tail end of his defense. So 82 drones isn't the absolute best, I guess, but it's still pretty good. And he has had enough minerals to mine from, despite that top left base being taken out and still needing to be guarded by this very, very injured drop. Bottom right base took a while, but is also starting to drone a little bit, starting to actually mine, but that might be mistimed. Yeah, ideally you would have tried to mine it as much as possible. I guess it has mined a decent bit, actually. It's a decent bit. But it also looks like Solar is going to be capable of defending it. And the question is, can he defend it now that Clem has set his sights on there, right? He can go, Infestor Fungal, actually more important, does catch a decent number of units. Banelings looking for better connections. Another Fungal to the top side. Oh, the Banelings will get beautiful connections, especially on those Ghosts, helping to take them out. And Clem's supply suddenly very, very low. He does not have the resources to replace it very easily. Trying desperately to make Ghosts. He also needs to worry about his medevac counts, as another parasitic bomb looks to kill at least 2. Another one, I think that was an F2 from the top left. The medevac that would have the 8 Marines does go down. SCV's murdered on the left side, too. And Solar is just playing some amazing ZVT. Clem's relentless aggression usually trips up the best of the Zerg players, but Solar was able to hold strong, and more than that, was able to counterattack relentlessly. Never gave Clem room to breathe, although Clem did have a solid wall, literally and figuratively. Solar just kept on picking at it. And the decision to stay only on Ling Hydra and then into Lurker and then back only to Ling Hydra has really worked out for him, as he is definitely going to be winning this game. Clem forced to tap out. Solar takes game number 1. Really impressive macro TVZ there from Solar. Nom. Now we're on Maganatha. In the top left, we do have Team Liquid's Clem. In the bottom right, it is Falcon's Solar. Both players hoping to add quite a bit to the club championships as well. Falcons won last year, I want to say. Team Liquid got second. In large part because of Clem, actually. I think they changed the way that the points balance out, but that's something I guess we'll talk a lot more about when we're actually at EWC. But to that game, Solar really impressed with how he was able to play that one. I mean, when he finally got his own attack going, he never let up. And not in some clumsy, desperate way that is just throwing wave after wave, because you know if you do let up, then that's maybe when Clem can start to reorganize and push you back, right? It wasn't at all like that. It was very efficient. For a long time, as Solar was on the offensive, he was only down in resources lost by 2,000, which is almost like a miracle, it feels like, in TVZ. Like, that is just not what you see leading into those mid-games, you know, in the early game, whatever. But, like, leading into those mid-games, when you actually have the large-scale battles happen, you start to see Zerg players kind of more steadily at maybe 6,000. As we head kind of mid to late game, it's, you know, evens up to 10,000 actually would still be a situation where, depending on the rest of the game's context, would just be acceptable. You'd be like, yeah, you know, that's Zerg's lot in life, oh well. But towards the end of the game, it was still only, what, it was a 4,000. Didn't get the check in the last minute, but probably just improved because it was clear Solar was winning towards the last 60 seconds. So very impressed with that. And Clem, you know, where did it really start? The fact that he had to move from offense to defense. I guess when he went for the split, he had 3 medevacs worth of units to the top left, and ended up trying to run back home. And then he had a so-called main army on the right side that was not really doing very much. Or as much as Clem would hope, I should say. And then, yeah, you know, as soon as he pulled back, Solar, he didn't spend that time getting, like, a solid, more solid, I should say. Like, he had a solid economy, but I mean, he didn't spend that time in which Clem pulled back to be like, okay, now I'm going to get 95 drones, or 90 at least, 90 drones. And, you know, build all those lurkers that I had accumulated money for, and like just play out the game that he's been able to give me. No, once he saw an opportunity, he hammered it home. I mean, Solar has been pretty good about deciding between going into lurkers and staying on Ling Hydra for a while at this point. It's something that I think I always end up giving him kudos for whenever I watch his ZVT. But it is difficult to make it perfect. It is difficult to be like, okay, that was the right decision, and it was so right. You were clearly winning the game. I mean, there's plenty of TVZs that I've cast of Solar versus the world-class Terrans, whether it's Clem or Bjorn or I was gonna say Cure, but honestly, not really Cure. Not as TVZ so much. But against certainly Clem and Bjorn, the very active, aggressive Terrans, where I'm like, I think he made the right decision here. But he still lost. Damn, this is really tough. These Terran players, man. But Solar is trying to improve, no doubt, a lot on his TVZ. But I mean, there is a decent balance of races going into EWC. I don't know exactly what the balance is if you take out the play-ins. I could look, but I'll do that later. I would expect a lot more Zergs. Are actually a little scared about the Protoss, but then I don't know. They both are. I mean, Zerg right now is just kind of having a tough time, I guess. What I'm really getting to, actually. Which is that a lot of the maps do not favor them. And there are a couple that do, but then there are a couple other that are drastically not favoring them. And if you are going to get to extended series, then that suddenly becomes a problem. And then there's just a couple of styles that are also just going to be very frustrating for Zerg players as well, including a mech style, which, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Clem threw out at EWC, actually. I would also not be surprised if he didn't, just because Clem is so... He trusts his bio players so much. Rightfully so. But, you know, Battle Mech Cyclones, the bug, I mean, if he threw one out, you know, I feel like that would be actually very, very warranted. And hiding it until that play, until that tournament would be a really good decision. Brief overview of the build here, just before we get too deep into that. We got the 3cc build, but onto the 2-1-1. It wasn't to a 1-1-1. Hellions and Banshees were created, so Solar was very aware of this. He doesn't quite know about the Banshees. He does, actually. This Overlord was very easily able to get that information. So he's going to have that defense, and then he doesn't really need to scout the extra barracks to figure that it is extra barracks. Not particularly fast engineer base again, not fast on the actual marine pushing, but the Hellions and Banshees hoping to at least keep the creep spread under control, maybe get a couple of drones, maybe stall out a fifth, things of that nature. And Solar, as one does as a Zerg player, has just been defending and macroing. So 67 drones. You know, he wasn't able to leap ahead drastically in that last game, but it was also, I think, a different situation. A different build, certainly, from Clem. And this time around, it seems like he is just leaping ahead in those drones, getting to Ling, Baneling, Hydra as well. But yeah, back to the Zerg frustration. So Battle Mech can always pop up, and then you gotta be reminded of the Cyclone bug, and that just in itself is probably worth the tilt effect on some of these guys. Sorry, Solar, but Queen doesn't survive. And then the ZVP, you know, we do have some complaints about it and how effective maybe oracles are and recharges and all that good stuff. So yeah, and then for ZVZ, it's such a funny thing where ZVZ is so uncommon, but also so uncommon that you don't want to practice it because your practice partners are often these Zerg players you will be facing. It is probably like better to let it be a crapshoot. You know, like, I mean, think about it, you know, play a little bit of it, obviously, sure, but you're not, I don't know if you're really focusing on it as much. So that's an interesting dilemma. Zerg is more of an enigma to me anyway, since my year playing Zerg. All the way back in 2011, people still think I play Zerg. But it has always been an enigma, but even, like, as the years go by, it just feels more and more like I really feel for the Zerg players, even though clearly Zerg players still win championships and Cyril Sliver and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, aside from that, we got the action actually broiling here. The Hellions and Banshees, they have a potential, but they did not actually realize their potential. So 5 Hellions are still alive and turn to Hellbats later on, but right now it's about this drop, which a little bit of this micro right there. Nice setup there from Solar, of course. So we got Queens on one side, and then the Hydras thought they could go ahead and get behind the army to go after those medevacs. So that was really nice pre-planning there for Solar. But then Clem, he was able to kind of see it coming for like half a second, right? Half a second, you see those Hydras, you realize what's going to happen. Tries to pick up. Doesn't pick up the second medevac. Fortunately for him, doesn't lose a medevac, which I think it was very close to happening there, but just takes half damage on both, which still makes it a little sketch to be out on the map with them. It is going to be an 8 racks from Clem by the looks of things. He is not going to go down 0-2 without at least trying to be the more aggressive player. And while he was aggressive for a while in the last game, he was forced to defend with an 8 racks. Falls to the wall, man. Just go, go, go. Tank's trying to be very courageous, getting very close to this hatchery. And the creep herd is so limited, and the Baneling numbers are also so limited, that this was something Clem realized was a possibility. The 16 Marines that were fortunately not killed and not forced back have done a great job opening up this push opportunity. A fantastic fungal does come down, injuring a lot of the units, but the follow-up isn't quite there. Typical hooks also was not done, which really hurts the Baneling's chances of actually connecting, and they try, but they fail, and Solar, well, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. The Hydras are starting to rip through some of these injured Marines, but not enough by the looks of things. The Lings on the front lines no longer available. Queen's desperately trying to be the damage soakers, but now they are all gone as well. And it looks like Clem's audacity. I mean, he just ran right up to this hatchery, man. Is really going to pay off. Because I will rewind once we get to the GG point, which does seem inevitable, to see exactly the timing of Solar's Infestor choice. And another Medivac, or another Fungal that doesn't really do very much. The Marines do have to be careful. You do have to kind of respect, as you know, when it comes to the small Marine battle versus small Hydra battle, you got to be like a little respectful, but the Hydras are more glass cannony. Yeah, GG's. Clem will take game number 2, which, I mean, not just in 8 racks, but one of, you know, the fastest you could do.
The StarCraft and the casting.
Not necessarily in terms of the build order, but rather just how close you actually make it dangerous for the Zerg player. Because, you know, obviously if the 8 rack starts all the way back in this base here, it's like, you know, who cares? Like, I got time, it's fine. Thank you very much, Paul Wilson, for the 10 buccarinos. Thanks for the StarCraft and the casting. Appreciate it. So yeah, so this is really where we get to I think, dive into the build here, because this is an interesting... Oh, did he just... Hold on, maybe it's not an interesting build timing. It's not, actually. I mean, it is still very fast. I do believe this is a slightly different ARAX build. I'd have to compare and contrast another ARAX. I think at the end of the day, it is just how audacious Clem was about it. Solar grabs Infestors pretty quickly. Not because he necessarily knows that it's an 8-rax, but I think this is just going to become more and more common for ZVT. I mean, clearly Solar wasn't expecting the entire army to be there at that time. Funnily enough, I wonder how well he could have done if he had taken the fight. So he didn't realize the entire army was there. Nah, never mind. Never mind. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if Baneling's available at that point, it would have been better. But we are talking about combat shields still not being done. I mean, Clem was not a slow pushing Terran with this, that's for sure. Equal upgrades otherwise. Thing is, if he had gone baneless, maybe he would have had the extra lings. That maybe means he actually takes this fight, as we saw in like the Reign or Beyond series. But he did go banelings, and he doesn't have that many lings. But this really was it's made the defense after so much more awkward. Yeah, simply not realizing that that was the entire army already made this so difficult for Solar, who lost units trying to retreat and then lost positioning trying to retreat, as opposed to being able to stand his ground and threaten the second fungal at a, you know, maybe like this choke, for instance. And when he does make banelings, not the fastest of the hooks. But his fungals actually, like, they were available, but they just didn't realize the entire army was coming across the map. Because someone asked in chat too, just to be clear to anyone who's wondering, no one knows what's happening with StarCraft 2 after EWC, aside from a couple of announcements. Home Story Cup to January was announced, and Streamer Zone announced a offline finals sometime in 2026. That's all anyone knows. All right, so we got a tied up series now. Top right, Clem. Bottom left, Solar. Clem with an 8 racks, but just one of the fastest 8 racks, bringing over his entire army, speeding through the middle of the map. Solar, I think, actually would have had a better defense if he had just known that it was the entire army coming. I think that's already a very big change. Instead, he thought he was still tackling the Marines and thought he had an open opportunity to fungal and snipe the medevacs, perhaps, and instead it was the rest of the army. That was kind of unfortunate. I mean, Solar did not get a second scout in and did not realize it wasn't 8 racks, but that's kind of his play anyway. That's like a lot of what he does. I would say often, more often than many other Zerg players, I'll note that he hasn't scouted something. And as far as I can tell, he like really hasn't scouted something. Not like, oh, he saw the lack of this, which means this. Which is very possible that he does that more often than I give him credit for. But as far as like the games that I've cast, saying, okay, I don't think Solar saw this exactly, seems like a more common thing I've said about him. Half the time, it's very worth noting because it really does bite him in the butt. And you're like, oh, I don't think he realized what's going on. And the other half of the time that I'm like, I don't think he knows what's going on, he does totally fine against it. Totally fine. So perhaps I'm missing an ingredient. Perhaps Solar is setting up a solid enough situation that doesn't matter if he has or has not scouted something. Yeah. Game dependent. That last game, as I said, he didn't scout the 8-Rex technically. I think he still would have had a decent shot at defending it if the start of the battle wasn't so catastrophic. And that, you know, there really wasn't a start of the battle. He was coming in thinking that they were still fighting with daggers, and Clem had brought a gun. And he was like, oh, well, shit. So, you know, Clem also not the biggest fan of 8-Racks, too. If you can predict Clem to do something 75% of the time, it is probably going to be the 3cc, either 211 or 111, and the variations of that. You know, Fascinating Dream Bays, Banshees, no Banshees. That's kind of the realm that we're talking about with Clem. As far as Hellbat attacks, 2-base or 3-base, pretty darn rare from him. As opposed to, you know, 3cc 211 with the Hellbats, kind of this like build that like Oliveira used to do. Also not that common from him. And again, the 8-Racks we're trying to talk about here. Not that common from him. Even on maps, which, whoa. Okay. Which usually a lot of the Terran players just be like, 100%, I don't care if they know what's going on here. This is the map that I do it, and then, you know, Jesus, take the wheel. But Clem, he's like, yeah, no, I'm going to win a macro game. And he's often right, so you can't really blame him. But he is trying to mix things up here versus Solar. You know, he doesn't win the game one like a typical game would go for him. Switches up immediately on a pretty good map for the 8-Rack, so you can see how fast you get across the map on that one, I guess. And then in the third game, he does something really out of his wheelhouse, and he goes for a proxy starport. I mean, this is just not very common in this matchup at all. It does occur, but you know, I would say less than TVP. And TVP has also, I think, seen less of it. And it might look a little weird. It's just like, you know, does it really help to get the medevac in the main base if lings are fast and creep spread is available? Yeah, it still does, actually. It still does. And not only for the fact that Solar has gone for a later speed build, but certainly that is one of the possible factors in Clem deciding to go for this build. He knows that he'll be able to catch the Zerg player out of position, a Zerg player who's mostly depending on Queens being in position to defend. And this is already a little topsy-turvy. The medevac being so low, it's actually already kind of concerning. And when it goes down, it dies. This now goes back to just being a regular old Hellion opener. 3 drones have gone down, 6 lings as well. More lings made than maybe strictly necessary against a non-drop version of this build, but that is a maybe. I mean, not a lot of lings were made. You know, 18 lings, that's generally respecting Hellion presence, especially a good Hellion user, I would say. So at the end of the day, Clem's drop looked like a real failure right there. Solar with fantastic positioning. He was able to get a Spore Crawler. Wait, why did he have a Spore Crawler? I'm gonna cheat. He actually was just building a Spore Crawler. I mean, he might have just been... He didn't know about it, right? No, there's no way he knew about it. But he just was building one in case of, like, a Liberator play, by the looks of things. Maybe this is a map where Clem has done something similar before. Maybe this is his safety Spore that he always builds versus a Terran player. I don't think we saw it in the last games, though. I'd have to check. But either way, that also very much helped. That was, I don't think, something Clem was expecting. Not because it was finished, necessarily, but because that would have really made the main base a no-go zone. If it already wasn't, if the medevac hadn't already taken so much damage, Solar's reaction to that was as fast as possible and as clean as possible. Drones pulled, lings body block, they die, but for the greater good, Queens come in to help out again versus the Hellions, as well as clean up that medevac. Third base wasn't even very saturated, so it wasn't even the best Hellion zone. And, oh, look at that. Solar's lings that turned into speedlings eventually also went for a little counterattack. Not the most effective one. More lost mining time than anything else, but I think still a very good idea. It's just that the Hellions were gone. There might not be enough defense in the natural. Clem had actually rallied his Marines to a really good location, I assume. How did he handle that so well? So Hellions are clearly gone. Solar's like, these Hellions aren't going to do anything to me. The Queens are on them. We're fine. A little dangerous, but I think it's a bit of a risk, but probably worth it. And then the lings appear, and Clem just immediately reacts. My god. Handles this with 3 Marines and an SCV pool that was near perfect. Holy shit. I mean, both players now exhibiting some superb defenses against something that really should have been a surprise. And both of them made it look like, meh. This had no potential to be game influencing, shall we say. I'm not sure either one was game deciding, but game influencing for sure. A Hellion drop could have killed 15 drones. The lings could have killed 10 SCVs. But no, instead that doesn't happen. All right. Clearly very well matched together today, which again, this was played about 2 weeks ago. Clem has gone into his own 3CC. I mean, yes, the starport was proxied, but everything else about his build was not very cheesy or all in. The starport lost a lot of time. It would then otherwise be getting at least add-ons. And then obviously building whatever it needs to build. Banshee, Liberator, in this case, medevacs, but it is building that now. And Clem has settled himself up on 3 bases pretty nicely with 5 barracks done, although he does need to add on the add-ons. Solar's 4 bases are now done with a 5th base on the way too, so while he, I think, has... maybe a little bit more of a lull in his pacing. I do think he'll recover very quickly. Now it's up to Clem to not let him recover, which is exactly what Clem is trying to do here. No combat shields, no upgrades, only 1 medevac, but once again speeding across the map, hoping to catch Solar, underprepared, almost works out. Hatchery at half health, but Ling, Baneling, Queen now available. Transfuse is holding up as well. Still no combat shields. And Clem is going to keep this position, but it's not looking like a quick and easy kill on this 5th hatchery. A couple of Lings looking for a run by are denied by the Hellings that are still alive. But that was an important moment, I would say. I think Solar was on the cusp of getting very comfortable. You know, having enough of an army and having his army in position with some creep spread to see where he needs to be in position. That he wouldn't panic. But that army suddenly appearing on the hatchery, I mean, a little panic I think would have been warranted. Clem, though, did not lose the position here, which is still very scary for the Zerg as the tank gets up into a very nice location. Typical hook's not done. Upgrades are finishing, but the Marines are getting surrounded. Nice tank shot right there. But the Banelings were going to catch this. One medevac also extremely low. Will not go down, and Clem will refuse to give up this position. The tank going down was kind of the number one domino to fall, though, and Solar's hoping that this will be an easy cleanup afterward. He's actually sending the Lings maybe behind this, trying to get a further surround. The Banelings looking awfully appetizing as far as the snipes go. He snipes all but 2, and 2 is all Solar needed to ensure that this would finally, well and truly, be pushed back. Both players not missing many beats on their macro. Solar 5 base, 72 drones, 2-2 on the way. Hive as well. Clem still up on his 3cc. He is 8-roxing once again, but a big Ling run by does come through. Clem saw it and immediately reacted with a Hellbat transformation. That was very well timed. That alone will deter Solar from trying to go for it. Now he realizes he needs his Lings back at home immediately. The tank on the backside looking like it's vulnerable. It is not. Yep. And that will be the 5th base going down. The 4th, actually, but there is a now replacement 4th with the 5th. And that'll be good enough for now. This is very scary. 8 racks, relentless, relentless, relentless. All it takes is one mistake, losing out on too many Banelings. Suddenly you lose a hatchery, or suddenly you just lose the game, honestly. As once again, we are on a Baneling style of play here from the Zerg player. Clem doesn't have a lot of AoE on the front lines as of yet, but he is on 3 tanks, 2 of them now on the front lines in, again, some decent positions. Not threatening anything themselves, but ensuring the Marines can pull back. Sola's going to try and get a big surround here, coming in from 3 different angles, try and swarm over the Marines. The Marines do pull back. They manage to not get surrounded, but the tanks are goners. This is off creep, something that Sola doesn't really want to continue going after, so he is going to back up and utilize his defensive position to hold on. Hive is done. 2-2 is almost done, although for both parties. The Marines once again getting awfully aggressive. Banelings having to be remade. Looks like Solar will have a momentary upgrade lead throughout these Baneling connections. Queens are on the forefront as well, trying to help out, trying to chip away at these medevacs. Ultraless Cavern is on the way. If you could get a couple of Ultras out, especially if they could actually get chitinous plating, that would be a godsend against what is mainly Marines here. That is a long ways away. A Junior Gland's also not going to be done anytime soon. A Viper did pop out, but he needs to soak up some juice before it can help out. Solar is on the brink. He is down 20 army supply, and he is yet to get that surround he's been looking for, trying to interrupt the reinforcements, trying to go for the surround now. Tank helping out a lot as the Marines are off and creep once again. They will simply spread out, mitigate the damage here. And the Queens can't get close enough, though. I think they're trying to go over to the tank as well, but they don't get close enough, and Solar is forced to flee, leaving that another 4th, again it was a 5th, but the 4th open to be killed. The drones are going to be targeted as the hatchery would take a little bit too long, and Solar is going to be sent back to 3 base mining. Couple ultras are on the way. Chitinous splitting was afforded. But the Banelings, oh no, they're even trying to go for the connections. Oh jeez, the Liberator's also bothering out. The Queen number has been culled. The Viper's going to try and help out, and it does. As more Queens come forward, they are being replaced. Helping against the Liberators, helping against the Medevacs, and also helping with transfuses. Could be huge on these Ultras, but Solar does have to evacuate that 4th base. A 3 base mining Zerg. How good are Ultras exactly? Are they good enough to repair the damage that Solar has taken? I'm not so sure. Chitinous Splitting still is not done. Liberator going to help out a kind of, well, more than a tiny bit. Funny abduct there for just one little pace, but it was enough to stop the Liberator from shooting. It was not enough for the Ultras to actually survive. Without chitinous plating, those Marines still were good enough. And Clem will take game number 2. Once again with an 8 racks. Very aggressive. As far as EWC next year, I can tell you what the scuttlebutt is. The scuttlebutt is that this is the last year for EWC. StarCraft 2. Not overall EWC. But that, you know, I think I can 100% believe that it was actually said by someone important. And then I could also believe that they changed their minds. So, we'll see. I don't even know what the bracket looks like for RSL. I was waiting for my pseudo hiccups to subside. Video game. Tokamak, his game before's map. Bottom left, he is now 1-1 away from winning. He is Clem. Top right, it is Solar, who had an amazing macro game 1. And then Clem's like, well, hell with that. And went for a couple of air axes, which were both effective. The third game had a more normal ebb and flow, but it is a difficult build to defend. Solar really tried a lot of very good things to defend against that. I don't know if I could pinpoint one particular thing that he did so wrong that is clearly why it snowballed. It's more just all the little things adding up, I guess. A little bit late to defending the fourth base initially, and then a little bit late again, so then it was snipeable. So it was sniped. Well, I mean, it wasn't sniped so much as the rest of the army came and destroyed it because Solar had not prepared enough army to defend it. But that does happen a lot in 8-rack scenarios, and that doesn't necessarily mean the Zerg dies. And then we had the top left be the focal point, and again, Solar had some really great setups coming in from at least 3 different directions, I want to say, every single time. Trying to cut off reinforcements at 1.2. He had his own ideas for run-bys. I guess what I could say is, and it was a gamble, but I would say one that is often made and one that should have maybe even done more damage, was when the fourth base was being attacked and like 30 lings, I think it was 30 lings went across the map for that run-by, which Clem defended by having 2 Hellbats. I don't know if that's exactly why Solar pulled out, because 2 Hellbats you can deal with it, but it's not that you can't deal with 2 Hellbats with 30 lings. It's that it's literally the extra amount of time, I would say, that you're just like, it's not worth it. They will kill 10 lings before they die, or whatever. And so that's 20 lings left over, but he's had 3 more seconds to respond, and he probably has reinforcements hiding at that supply depot. You're right, because that's where the Terran players will put their reinforcements until it's a sizable number, but then they'll move out. So I'm just not even going to bother. I think the timing is gone, and that is very fair. But the point is, Solar did send those units across the map, did want to go for a run-by, did not work, and then they came back, and perhaps were not as effective as if they had simply stayed at home. But it's like, it's not even like calling it a mistake so much, I feel like, you know? It's hindsight's 2020. Good idea, but maybe a little bit more of why that fourth base ended up being so difficult to control, and then maybe we did sink too much into it to defend against it, and then inevitably lose it. The 8-rack just feels so razor thin sometimes. And as like I'm saying, like I don't even... It's like a bunch of maybes. Solar would have more concrete things to improve on, I'm sure, but I didn't think anything he did again was all that bad at all. And Clem, I mean, you know, yes, Clem played well. He did the macro well. He did the micro well. He did the focus fire well. And he does it better than any other Terran. All the Maru stands are in shambles. But he does, so there is that. But it does feel like Solar was doing almost everything, right? I suppose I didn't check things like gas counts or, you know, maybe there is something to the non-Baneling style of play, but moving on from Game 3, we're on Game 4 that is shaping up to be very different. This time, because Solar is going to change things up. He's going to add on a Roachborn here, hidden in the back. Does not want Clem to know about it until the very last second. The Reaper is eager to find whatever is going on in the main and is simply shooed away. Speed is finishing. Ling production not going out of control, actually. So this is going to be just a shove across the map and not fully committed to. Okay, no, it is. There's a bunch of Lings. And Clem has gone into a 3cc 111, but he is not building a Banshee, which would be helpful. It would. The Hellions are also not going to see the Roach until the very last second. They see one Roach. Might as well go ahead and assume the worst, which is that there's going to be a lot of army coming across the map. Not always. Someone's just a Roach defense, but now he knows for sure that this is going to be an attack. And what is the defense looking like? He does not have a wall. He is still building up his production, so this is not... Well, this is a wall that's not going to last very long. The bunkers are trying to be put down. He realized that the natural is eventually going to be broken. Builds one on the main base as well, but this is where a Banshee or two would be a lot more helpful. The Liberator is obviously vulnerable to the Ravagers, of which a third one is being made now, so that 3 shots a Liberator, that's exactly what you need. Very dangerous. Clem realizes, you know, it's going to try and micro as long as possible with this, but this is now something you could just avoid. One Ravager does go down, meaning the Liberator will survive the Corrosive Biles. But this is going to be a very tough hold nonetheless, even with Banshees. Still a matter of all of these Lings and not that much Hellion DPS. As the Lings are on top of everything right there. Bypass the pseudo-sim city that was going on. Ravagers do eventually take out the Liberator. It does buy enough time for a tank to pop out, and it looks like Clem identifies is going to be the end. I don't need this bunker anymore. I'm going to try and take what I can get from the situation I have right now. Losing 23 SCVs actually does not kill Clem. It doesn't. But Solar isn't droning behind this, so it's a matter of does he survive the next wave. Wall made with the Marines, with the tanks helping to kill that wall as the Lings are just doing a great job allowing that friendly fire to happen with the wall broken. That is a dead Clem. GG's. And a bunker there wouldn't have saved them either, so... I think he was hoping the best case scenario for him would have been Solar had been droning behind that, so he kind of just rolled the dice to a certain extent. And then if he wasn't, if he was going for a secondary all-in, Clem had probably already resigned himself to losing. So a well-timed all-in from Solar will take us to Game 5. Oh, has it? I'm glad to hear that, Bunger. Game number 5 is going to be on Torches. An interesting map. Bottom right's Clem. Top right is Solar. Solar throwing in his own aggression to stop Clem's momentum. First game, great macro game. Solar won. 2 and 3. 8 Raxes from Clem that Solar could not hold against. And then Solar does his own aggressive opener for faster than an 8 Rax, but similar ideas there. To change things up, stop the momentum, and to remind Clem that he has to be worried about those types of openers as well. So if Clem was thinking this game, I'll try and get away with the fastest engineering Bay 3 CC211, you know, maybe he doesn't. I'm not sure that he would have on Torches anyway, but yeah, the point stands. I don't also think that Solar is chomping at the bit here to go for another early attack, not with Clem mostly here, you know, just ready to be eagle-eyed, right? In the cases that you think there is not an all-in on the way, you're going to play your Hellion Reapers differently, you know? You're going to not mind if the Reaper doesn't get into the main base. You're going to be like, probably just droning anyway. the Hellions are not going to be prioritizing scouting over trying to find openings to kill creep tumors and drones. But if you have been reminded, like, oh my god, they could all in me, suddenly that Reaper tries much harder. Suddenly the Hellions split themselves even. And suddenly also Banshees are a far safer option. Which, you know, if you don't think you need Banshees, you want to try and mix things up as far as the flow of your attack, then the Liberator could have been very annoying, but defensively that's not what you would want. The other options for a Zerg player outside of a standard Ling Baneling or Ling Hydra, you could actually play Roaches. Is this the map to do it on, though? I'm not sure. As in macro Roaches. Or even 1/1 Roaches, I guess, actually. There have also been a couple of Zerg players trying to bring back Mutas. And there is something to playing a fast Muta game on a map that is once called Clothed by Air. But that's still pretty rare. And I'm not sure Solar... I think he was doing it a couple times. But I don't know about this one. Solar is going to position 2 Overlords on the offensive. This might sound like just filling time. But that's kind of noteworthy. I don't want to just try... Well, okay. Man, I should have been really more confident. I should have been like, this means he's going to all in. Because apparently it does. Thing is that most Zerg players don't bother to send 2 Overlords to their opponent's base anymore. I think it used to be more common, literally for scouting years ago. The backup scout, you know, in case the one didn't see what it needed to see. But then, it was just 1 Overlord. That was already too risky with how many Terrans were like changing their builds open and trying to go for attacks on the Overlord. And it was also good enough. Like, far more often, they were getting the appropriate details from 1 Overlord and any other amount of scouting they can include. So when you get 2 Overlords, especially by Solar, in my opinion, as well, I think he's the least likely to do this for scouting purposes. You gotta think about the all-in potential. You gotta think about the Nidus Worms. Clem is not thinking about Nidus Worm because he saw 2 Overlords. He has not seen that, but because he's only seen 2 bases. He did see a drone start to mine out the gold, and that's what he needs to go ahead and check. Fortunately, you can check. This would have been Clem playing not cautiously enough after being all-in to skip scouting the 3rd hatch. But it did require a bit of effort on his part, didn't it? This wasn't as simple as just sending across the map and you know, anyone could do it. And this might just be a problem of doing 2 all-ins back-to-back. You know, I mean, at this point, Clem knew something was up. Something could be up. Then he saw no 3rd hatch and knew it was up. And now he knows it's a Nidus Worm. Although he's not seeing it currently. A bunker is being built in the main. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. This could still win Solar the game. This could still win him the game. 3 queens, 8 roaches. It's not a lot. But Clem doesn't have a lot either, mind you. Bunker will finish in the nick of time. Mass repair is prepared. Get the Marauder in there, I would say. Yeah, Reaper helps out a little bit. The Queen slightly off of creep for a hot second, though they did transfuses. But this bunker is holding. 3 CC, you can lose a lot of SEVs before you start crying foul. The bunker will eventually fall by the looks of things, but this has bought so much time. Cyclone also needs to get involved up here. More units are on the way. Factory also wants to produce the 2nd unit if it can. Bunker barely holding, barely holds. Oh, and that is it, actually. He can no longer kill the bunker. Clem holds, despite not getting the Nidus Worm. I mean, more often you win because you kill the first Nidus Worm and then they're forced some type of frontal attack, but he wins thanks to a bunker built in the main. Nicely done. But yeah, he was already playing far more cautiously because of the last game. It's possible he also is starting to do this on torches just as a default, because this not only opens up the scout for this hatchery, but it does also allow you to harass that hatchery. And I certainly wouldn't mind that at all. I think that would be worth the mining time lost on the SCV. But one way or another, this was going to be mined out, and that does allow the scout on the lack of 3rd hatchery. So very nicely done there by Clem, just playing defensive. Solar, it's a good idea, because this is the map that you can theoretically fake having a 3rd hatch. It's not easily scouted, but that might be changing as the map continues to be in play. GG's, Clem, 3-2. Can you see his Terran in the shadow of the Overlord? No. You just assume an Overlord's in the Overlord spot. I'm reading a GCTL thread. You know, one thing I don't understand from the community, there's a lot of things I don't actually, but there's like a couple of people out there in the StarCraft community who are blaming EWC for problems in the StarCraft scene. That really confuses me. Like this guy. Personally, I just prefer stateless other options. I haven't chosen to dig into this Patreon. I still think some of the criticism is fucking ridiculous at a time where EWC has shit on the wider StarCraft 2 scene from a great height. I don't get how they think that's the case. I think there's this certain number of people who think they know why there was a huge delay on announcements for StarCraft 2, and they're wrong. And then instead of being like, I might be wrong on this one, but if that is the case, then I hate them. They're just like, well, no one's corrected me so far, so I'm just going to say this is the case. I'm just going to ask. I'm going to post on Team Liquid. Bam. Part of the discussion now. I'm going to BRB. I need to get water. Alright, I'm back. Hello. Yeah, exactly, Mike. No one really knows. The reason that we've heard ESL took so long to announce their inability to continue with StarCraft 2 was because they tried up until the point that they finally announced it. They were still trying to make it work. But the reason as to why EWC waited so long to be announced, even people who should know more than I do in these kinds of things, you know, also are unsure. But there might have been something with Blizzard. So, like I said, it's just like no one goes in and corrects them, and so they're just like, well, this must be what it is, and now I just hate these people. Because I see the same for Blizzard too, where, you know, someone has heard the rumor I'm talking about, and they're like, well, you know, Blizzard ruined StarCraft 2's chances at a solid community scene because they waited so long to give confirmation EWC. And it's like, no one really knows. I don't know why we're talking like we do. I wonder if I'll ever stop being a fire bat on Team Liquid. Maybe I need like 1,000 posts to finally be whatever is up next. Tom Berry a little closer than last stream. Sure. I'm gonna gaslight you guys. Alright, what's up next? More TVZ? Possibly. Yeah, let's cast some Raynor. Nah. You saw nothing. Beyond's only diamond. Ah. Alright guys, it's a best of 3 this time. In the bottom right we have Raynor. In the top left we have Beyond. Raynor is playing in Korea, so this is on the Korean server. Both these players are going to EWC, both in the actual tournament as well. There's a play-ins that will, I guess, encompass the first day. It's a very odd thing to have no bracket at all known about a tournament like this until into the tournament. But I guess that's what's going to happen with EWC. Is the play-ins have to play first to determine who goes in which bracket and group and whatever. So that's a little weird, but oh well. But these guys are going to be waiting for, I guess if the tournament starts Tuesday, then I guess they're going to be waiting for Monday. Or Hadoy Wednesday. Beyond has been bringing back the forward racks, what is what it feels like. You know, he did it a couple times. Like, all the Terrans are doing it a couple times. And then Beyond was doing it 100% of the time. And then he wasn't doing it very much at all. And then he was doing it, and now he's doing it more frequently. But still not 100% of the time. And that's a very summarized, like, 2-year timeline, I think. I don't remember the time which Beyond was doing it literally all the time, but it was a while back. Also, time is a very odd concept when we have such long gaps between big StarCraft 2 events, but point is, he is, once again, big fan. Big fan of these opening forward Raxes. Generally, the forward 2 Rax. Every so often, maybe he does the 1 Rax, but that was something I think that the other Terrans did more. If they were to forward Raxing, they were kind of swapping between 2 and 1. And the 1 would just be to kill this Overlord. But this is 2, and Raynor would probably predict it is just 2. Possibility of a 3 Rax Reaper exists, but what map is the best for it? I'm not sure. You'd have to look at how many Reaper hop-up spots and how close they are to each other. But aside from the danger that is that, a 2-Rax Reaper is still somewhat annoying. Oh, good save on the spore right there. Because you have to change your build as a Zerg player to deal with it. You can't just grab your 3rd hatch like you usually would. Even if you hide the drones, the drone isn't killed. You still can't take the 3rd hatch. Because if they go for the hatchery immediately, they can get a cancel, even with 3 Reapers, I want to say. If they get there immediately. And then certainly if they go up to 5 Reapers, which is not uncommon in the 2-Rax opener, they can 100% kill the hatchery. So, like, if you try to get the hatchery, you better have those queens already running on over, and then they could also be sniped too, and it's ugly. So, basically, you just have to delay your own 3rd hatch. Or hope they miss micro and lose a Reaper. This was only 2 Reapers, though, so there's no lost Reaper. He just only went for 2. Which means that Raynor probably could have gotten a 3rd hatch at a usual time, but what are you gonna do? You scouted what you scouted. Roachhorn is on the way. So speaking of scouting, Bjorn's gonna do a little bit of that himself. He's probably assuming that he's done a great job denying this 3rd hatch. Okay, well, I can't really describe what's happening here. That would be such a big brain second Roachhorn if it was for Bjorn suicide scouting into the natural. Where he's like, no, I don't have a Roachhorn, of course not. But the roaches are actually building. But I'm pretty sure this is just a mistake. He went for a faster Roachhorn than he usually does, and then forgot that he did. Oh, just the last second. The very last second. He looked at, like, he was probably, like, looking at the roach button, waiting for it to actually appear so he could slam the roach button down. And he was like, wait, it's already there. That does still suck, though, because that is technically lost timing for him. He could have been building the roaches. I guess it's really not the worst thing in the world, because now he's just building them all at once. Yeah, okay. What was happening back at Bjorn's side of the map, though, which I think is a lot more important. Well, not more important, but it is also important. A 3rd Rax was added. A 3rd Rax was added. Not the factory, not going up to the starport, and a 3rd CC. A 3rd barracks was added. And this is reminiscent of an old style of play that I'll get into in a second. But right now, the issue is that they both don't know what's happening. Raynor now realizes just how many Marines are available. He thinks he can tackle them. But Stim is done, and Combat Shields is almost done as well. So Raynor, I don't know. I think he's wrong about this. Yeah, he is. Maybe he actually did not see how many Marines that was. And that is game. Okay. All right. Okay, that was... Let's review. Because I think I know why that happened that way, but... Let's go back to this. He sees... Not all the Marines that he could have, actually. That was a really cute split there from Bjorn. Oh, he thinks this is... Okay. That was a cute split. I didn't realize that Bjorn had successfully hidden like 8 or 9 Marines. So, like, no wonder. You know, he thought that was probably coming out from just the 2 barracks, possibly. And that it was just for abusing a speedling defense that, like, you know, queen speedling defense, I should say, one that's just hoping to build more drones than anything else. So, you know, probably in Raynor's mind, he's like, okay, this guy's trying to be overly aggressive, doesn't realize I had so much army, but he actually didn't realize that there was so much army. So that's unfortunate for Raynor, who is going to hopefully, you know, find someone going into 3CC and trying to build into their medevacs, but still having a rather low number of Marines. That was not the case. Low number of Marines without Stim and Combat Shields quite yet. Maybe you could have killed Combat Shields, actually, as it would have been on this tech lab, not this one. Yeah. But a funny sequence of events. But what I was trying to say was that Bjorn kind of going into what we used to see of... How long ago would it have been? 4 years ago? I don't even remember. When was, like, Cure doing a lot of the Marine-only openers? So you'd go for Mass Marine, and you would get a number that is bigger than this, actually, but you'd get the same idea. Only Marine, Stim, and Combat Shields. And you would just hover around the bases. Was it the same time we were seeing the 2 racks popularity. I feel like I was before it. Funnily enough. But you would literally just hover around. So this wasn't really intended to just win the game. This might have been, but the style of play I'm talking about wasn't necessarily about winning the game right then and there. It was about suppressing the Zerg player. So Zerg player never felt comfortable building drones. And if they overbuilt army, then the Terran player would just be like, fair enough, and they would run back home. But this was probably trying to take advantage of someone playing defensive, still building up their army supply. Actually was facing someone who was really all-inning, but they kind of both were doing something very aggressive. Beyond building a factory, yes, but only 1 engineering base, still no 3rd CC. Raynor probably was going to drone behind this attack if it did find a defensive Terran. Yeah. Funny sequence of events right there. So Beyond is now up 1-0 with a bit of a build order win, actually. The bottom left it is Beyond, top right it is Raynor. Because the builds were kind of... Well, Raynor's build was reactive. That's why it's like, you know, build order win. Still, yeah. But, you know, does Raynor go for the build that he does if he did not get 2 racks initially? That's why it's not... From the get-go, someone chose something and then they were screwed. But at the end of the day, Raynor did try and go for the counter-aggression option, post 2 racks, and he did not find someone getting a 3rd CC. He found someone going for extra Marines and sim and combat shields, and that just ruined his day, didn't it? I don't know how weird it would have gotten if they had simply run past each other, but I can't figure that would have favored Raynor, because he still would have had to break through a wall, which would have taken a very long time. Beyond would have been able to cancel the 3rd hatch at the very least, and then probably return home and kill all those roaches. Yeah. Unfortunate sequence of events for Raynor. And then he only saw so many Marines, so unfortunate sequence of events for Raynor. Also, really clever there for Beyond. As soon as he saw an Overlord, he let 8 to 9 Marines just stay back, and that was a big difference maker. Second game is going to go immediately into a command center first. No forward Raxes this time around. Something that Raynor would still be aware of the possibility. And when there are forward Raxes, there's also the chance for the Marine. So you do have to be very on guard with that first Overlord once you know that the Terran player is going to have that kind of diverse build opener. You know, you go up against Clem and you can probably 99% of the time assume that your Overlord will not die. Not to a single Marine opener. Maybe to a Reaper Marine opener if you're really just careless with it, I guess. But like the Clan doesn't do like these very pointed, I want to kill the first Overlord, that's the main goal of my build order, like some of the Korean Terrans do. And this is getting a little more interesting than just a CC first into Barracks Factory, which is usually the presumption. It's going to go into a 2-1-1 by the looks of things, which, you know, is still not abnormal at all, but this is leaving the Terran player very weak early on. I mean, I guess what's abnormal about it is just that we don't really see a lot of 2CC 2-on-1s anymore. Command Center first or not. And this fell out of fashion for 2 big reasons that I can think of. Well, maybe 3, actually. Which I get to in a second. We got 4 links coming across the map, wondering what the hell popped out. Must have been a Marine, right? No Reapers around. Now it's going to see the full scope of the build order. Which I think eventually Raynor would have figured out, but it is nicer to not show your 2-on-1 as long as possible, especially since it is no longer meta off of 2 bases. So that's unfortunate. But a 2-on-1 off of 2 bases, it was scouted pretty quickly when it was the common thing to do. You would immediately tell, because there'd be no Hellions. You'd be like, oh, what he's doing now? The actual attack became so figured out that every Zerg player could defend it blindfolded. And it opened you up to weakness in the early game. Which, I don't think you have to go for an all-in against this, but technically is an option the earlier you scout it. But I would say definitely the first 2 is just, it's not that strong, and it doesn't have that 3rd CC behind it to say, like, well, it's just the appetizer. Like, this is basically an entree. Like, it's got to do damage. And Raynor knows about it. He knows about it so hard. The hardest anyone has ever known about anything. And so he should know exactly how to defend against it, even though it's been a while since we've seen a 2-base 2-1-1. It hits around... Oh my god. 5 minutes. And I also forgot. So often we see the 3CC version, which hits around 5:30, and I was like, wait, oh god, I don't remember it either. But no, it's going to be around 5 minutes that it comes across the map. Actually unloads. Raynor, you know, he actually does not go for the faster +1 carapace option. But I don't think you have to do that. I think you could be quite greedy. This is, again, going back to the problem that was the 2-base 2-on-1, is that Zerg players would just defend it with Queen Ling. They wouldn't really need anything else. They would drone, you know, as long as they figured was safe. And then they'd figure a 2-base follow-up would be possible. And that you'd have to take seriously. To this day, you have to take it seriously. But maps have only gotten bigger. And Zerg players have only gotten better. So the follow-up 2-base, which it does look like Bjorn is going to do, also just has very little teeth. They're sharp teeth, but there's not a lot of them, you know? You would keep the leg if they bit you. It's a very unintimidating great white shark. Double drop is going to catch at least 1 cancel. Not even. Not even a cancel on a 4th hatch. Raynor at 54 drones is going to bump that up to 61. And he might stop there because he does need to think about the 2-base follow-up. Single engineering bay is already a good enough scout that it's 2-base follow-up. No 3rd CC was made. And she's not scouting. Perhaps he's predicting it. Who would 2-base 2-1-1 and not just go for the 2-base follow-up? And he is getting everything he would need against someone about to attack him, which is just more army. He has stopped building drones. 1-1 will complete by the time Bjorn's army is really ready to tango. Lair will be finished. Baneliness will be done. Centrifugal hooks will not. And I'd say that's the strongest timing that Bjorn has to actually do damage with this. But even that, I'm not... I don't have a lot of confidence in Bjorn's ability to win here. He's going to lose that creep threat on the front lines. Raynor still getting the Baneling set up, getting his queens in position, because he didn't actually add a creep tumor over on this left side. And now he's got a surround set up. He's going to capture a tank on the backside. The Marines try to respond, but they're not quick enough to it, and that is a tank down and a medevac down as well. And Raynor continues to build army. I was hoping to maybe catch some reinforcements, but Bjorn is too wise for that. He's sending a chunk of reinforcements, but they're not going to be here in time for the defense of this particular position. Banelings are focus fire with the tank, which is nicely done, but the Lings themselves with an upgrade lead are actually already chewing away on the Marine count. Banelings not necessary. Bjorn is able to hold on to a good number of Marines, and certainly, you know, you can still come to a point where the Zerg player is exhausted. They're not injecting, they're not replacing the creep, they're losing queens, they simply focus on micro too much and don't macro. Like, this could still win the Terran player of the game, but Raynor is clearly all over this. This is just me presuming that Raynor will not make mistakes. I am absolutely pro-gaming casting this one. I mean, if I was really pro-gamer casting it, I would have said that Bjorn is dead as soon as those 4 Lings got into his main. That would have been the real pro-gamer call. But I wanted, you know, like a little ifs, like what if, you know, is I think was warranted. Now, full pro gamer mode. No hype at all! Rainer identified. He reacted. His macro's good. His micro's good. His 4th hatch was killed, but he had a 5th already done too. So if he had the drone sent over there, he could. And that's not a drone issue. It's a larva issue. So, you know, that's still important, but it's like he's covered it. He's good. And now as his drones do start to oversaturate, he does move them over to still another base to mine from. Finds it in him to get the 2-2 started. Beyond sees that this 2-base all-in is not going to work and tries his hand at macro. But that 3rd CC literally just starting. Literally. He did also grab a 2nd engineering base. He's going to try and catch up on the upgrades to a certain extent. But Rainer should eventually identify this. I mean, the longer he sees no reinforcements whatsoever, the more that he's going to wonder, okay, is he going to 3rd CC? And then maybe you bust out a couple extra drones, right? Maybe 12 extra drones. And then you're probably still pretty well set up as far as the macro game goes, just because Bjorn is still so delayed on it. Double Liberator choosing to go for the harassment rather than trying to go on the forward position. It does actually cause some problems. Spore Crawler not yet done, but is finishing, and the Queens managed to find that one little nook that would actually work. And the Liberators are pushed back. Speaking of being pushed back, Marines forced to pick up in the dropships. Why are they saying dropships lately? I guess because when they're dropping and running around, I think of them more as dropships. They're not healing. Their purpose right now is not healing, that's for sure. Anyway, and they do not find any success in the main base. But funnily enough, they manage to unload as Rainer decides to stop chasing something that he really can't quite kill, and instead wonders if another attack is on the way. But with still no reinforcements making an appearance, it's more and more confirmed that Bjorn has added on the 3rd CC. Liberator is still trying to be obnoxious. At the very least, Bjorn is continuing to threaten with them, but that's the 2nd one going down. 6 drones in total went down as well. And this is where Rainer does need to start worrying about his drone count. I mean, you can't just defend forever if they're not going to attack forever. He sees the 3rd CC still as a non-orbital, which means that he still has time to, I mean, not catch up is absolutely not the word, but he has time basically to continue, like, get ahead now that he knows for a fact what it is. If he had scouted the orbital with all 16 SEVs mining, then you're like, oh shit, did I build too much army? Spawning pool is a target right now, but transfuses are available. Those Queens were waiting for the Liberator, so coincidentally they were perfectly positioned. And it looks like this drop will continue because, well, Rainer can't quite deal with it yet, but it's not finding a ton of success. Beyond's 2nd drop was a little bit of a surprise, but it was handled as well. And Rainer is up to 69 drones, which is good enough. Particularly since he's only on 4 hatcheries. Once he has a 5th base on the way, he'll probably bust out a few more drones. And we might get ourselves to what could be called a decent macro game for both players. But beyond, his upgrades are later than they usually would be for a Terran player. His 2nd factory is still non-existent. And while mostly bio, 1 factory is a style of play, I don't know if he has the momentum that would prefer it, you know? Like mass bio units, the style that we've seen every now and again where it really is just mostly bio, like that needs to be relentless. That needs to be dropping every which way. It needs to go Super Saiyan. And I'm not sure that Bjorn has quite the momentum for that. It looks like the supplies are close enough, right? This actually is totally normal for what would have been a regular macro game. Okay. But we have Baneling bombs ready to go. We have 2-2 already done for the Zerg player. Hive about halfway done as well. And Rainer, yeah, just to use those Baneling bombs. Big old splash of red right there. Is ready to tango with whatever Bjorn has to throw at him. Baneling's not quite making the connections this time around, but Wintermind's also not making big connections. More burrowed Banelings. The drop just behind the last 2 that we saw. Not going to be affecting this particular battle, but that's okay. Lings take care of things for now. Speaking of, still taking care of the 2 drops over to the left side. Rainer is getting his 5th base up and running. Should be adding on those extra drones. Getting Hydras, getting Lurker Den, getting upgrades. Adrenal glands probably going to be prioritized in 1 second. There it is. Plus 3 carapace as well. And Bjorn is still only on 3 CC. So it's now at this point, it's more than probably 1 step behind as far as the pacing of a macro game for Bjorn. For Rainer, I think I would say is pretty on track, other than the drone count, which he might improve after dealing with this. Marauders on the front line did tank quite a bit. Baneling's unable to make those beautiful connections with the Marines, but burrowed Banelings, now accompanied by burrowed Infestors, makes any move out by Bjorn very scary. This infestor will be going down, but the rest of the army also looks to fall as Raynor comes in with a swarm. Still, we probably wishes those Banelings just a little more over to the right side. And Raynor does dip down quite a bit in supply. He not only took a fight right there, but he also lost 9 drones. This is a little worrying. But Bjorn is still very low on his own economy. 4th CC finally heading on over. Raynor does know he needs more drones, but it's just been a matter of making sure that he can defend against what he needs to, while also getting some pretty high technology. I mean, it's not that he's just defending. He is getting some pretty damn good technology, while Bjorn is going to struggle to get up to Ghosts. And if you are going to be trying to defend against an onslaught style of play, something that's going to be attacking you multiple directions, just all bio on the front, Lurkers are going to be really helpful here. He's going to try and micro against them, but Mass Chance Dudes just went down to make sure that these Lurkers never died. They never died! And so many Marauders died in the process. An Infestor from behind as well with a double fungal to ensure maximum success. And that is everything. Killed, murdered, obliterated. Those 2 Lurkers were the Ultralisks of the battle. My god. Bjorn really thought he could kill him. And without those transfuses, he could have. And then maybe without those 2 Lurkers, the other 2 I think that were available, if I think I saw correctly, I don't know. Other 1 maybe. Would not have been enough either, and then the battle would have been very, very different. The fungal from behind was also absolutely brilliant. Bjorn might have been able to evacuate with a good number of very injured Marauders. Instead, he loses everything. And now Raynor is on the warpath. He's got an almost maxed out army. He's got the Lurkers, although without their technology quite yet. He does have the range on them, and that is most important. He is going to be able to push back this 3rd, and he might even be able to push back the 4th with a simple Ling run-by. That is only an orbital over there. Bjorn was arguably playing with fumes. You know, again, having a maxed out army with at least 3-2 eventually. The potential is high. It is. But Raynor was able to defend with a good enough economy to get technology. And I think that's where really Bjorn was always going to have trouble with. So if Raynor had not gone for Lurkers, maybe Bjorn actually really does start to make this look like a totally A-okay game, where he's just dropping left and right, he's taking battles, he's taking, you know, better resource trades, and then Raynor being on a lower drone count than comfortable would really start to hurt him. But Raynor would have been a bit foolish to do that, wouldn't he? I think he knew exactly what he wanted to do and when his power spike would come into effect. And it took a while, it took 15 minutes, but those Lurkers were a hell of a power spike, plus the fungals, of course. The combination was beautiful. Beautiful. I also love Infestors in general. For Zerg players, not when I'm playing, obviously, but like for Zerg players, I think Infestors have been at times very underutilized. I think that there has actually been a crime against Infestors for a while that only Dark was aware of, but besides my rants on Infestors, they're obviously good at almost every point in the game. They're going to be added into more Zerg games no matter what the Terran player is doing, and that is good. But I think for this game in particular, there's also a lot to be said again about trying to get defenses against a mass bio player. Arner Yorns. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs. Yeah, but for like a year, maybe more, because this, I remember when, was there an Infestor patch at some point in the last 2 years? In the last 2 years, yes. In March 2024. God, time is a concept, isn't it? Jesus Christ. But yeah, I think that is the time period that I'm remembering. I just can't believe it's been so long already. Anyway, so like for a year before that, and for time after that. Infestors were only highlighted in those really late game TVZs, like the Cyril Clem series, which, you know, that is a highlight for them, and they're very good, and they were shown to be good, and blah, 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 blah. But I felt like people weren't giving Infestors enough credit for any other period of the game, aside from Dark. Like, Dark would go Infestors when he was fucking screwed, right? He'd go for, like, a Roach All-In or something, like a cheese or whatever he did, and he'd be like, oh shit, it didn't work. And he'd go Roach Infestor. And he would make Infestors look so good in a place where he was severely behind. He'd make them look so good in a mid-game when everyone else was just talking about their late-game potency. And so when there was a patch to the Infestor and people were like, oh, finally, Infestor's going to be used more than just for, like, these, you know, gotcha surprise maneuvers, I was like, I don't think the Infestor is the problem. I think Zerg players aren't playing enough Infestors. I am going to go full hipster mode. Full hipster mode. I was calling it long before Shin took down Clem with it. Except I wasn't really calling it. I was just like, I guess it doesn't work. But I think I even mentioned it when I reviewed these patch notes. Someone go look up my patch note video on YouTube about this one. I think I even mentioned it. There is historical proof. Oh, I hope your surgery goes well. War is more than hell, as MASH put it. You could also, if you wanted to be a little comical in a dark comedy, you could say that war has nothing but overpowered things too, just like Brood War. But yeah, the Infestor thing, fucking called it. Dark knew what was up with Infestors before the late game, before the ultra late game. I mean, there were so many late game TVZs where they wouldn't even grab Infestors until it was like, you know, 8 bases. And now that Clem went down to Infestors, people are like, we should get Infestors faster. It's like, oh. Telling you. Anyway, last game coming up. It's just a best of 3, so we are on the last game. In the bottom left, it is Raynor. In the top right, it is Bjorn. So, Raynor, I think he played that basically to perfection. Someone out there might have a couple of games where they can prove that a Zerg player should be farther ahead after that 2-1-1, where they were able to kill the Terran player before 15.5 minutes. Sure. But it is rare enough that I don't want to even try, you know? Like, I've cast legitimately probably something like, oh my god, how many 2-on-1s would I have cast, actually, in my career? Because the 2-1-1 was the dominant meta for years. When I was casting by far the most I've ever cast, when there was far more, like, big tournaments as well. Like, we're talking about thousands, certainly. So in those thousands of games, especially towards the tail end of 2-1-1's viability, I'm sure there's plenty of examples we can find of the Terran player not having that 2-1-1 opener work and then just being like, fall flat in his face, he's dead. But that said, in the same way that Zerg players have gotten better, I mean, Terran players have also gotten better. And I think Bjorn always comes in as a breath of fresh air for the commentators and for the fans. But whatever a negative connotation breath of fresh air is for the opponent. Because there is probably something to facing multiple Terrans as a Zerg player. Especially if it's just like you're facing Clem all the time, right? And kind of getting stuck in this idea that this is how it's going to play out. Even if the build changes a little bit, even if he throws in an 8 racks or he throws in a proxy starport, Clem is going to have a similar pacing to his TVZ. And Bjorn comes in and it's just like, kind of like a drunken master, and you're just like, oh shit, like, okay, I gotta, okay, all right, hold on, like, let me rethink this. So I think that does sometimes very much make his archaic builds actually shine. Not because the Zerg players have forgotten how to defend them, or forgotten that the follow-up exists. More, they just don't really have that type of Zerg flow against those games, because they don't play them nearly as often. So I think that Bjorn has won games where he's done that. You know, it's not like he does something and expects it to lose. But with all that said, I think Raynor ultimately came to the correct conclusion, which is like, well, it's going to be really hard to actually kill this guy, so going for a counterattack is not going to work out. I think it is going to be difficult to keep track of all of his armies he's about to throw at me, because he has built up a maxed out army. So what is the best thing I can do? Go up to Hive, get lurkers. And those lurkers, they were beautiful in the engagement we saw. That was a game-deciding engagement. Even if it wasn't, even if Bjorn went, okay, those lurkers aren't going to die, I'm going to back away, I'm going to play out the rest of this game, keep in mind, again, that the lurkers could have been spread out. 2 lurkers in the 3rd and 4th base. Suddenly drops are far less effective. Infestors also would have been tracking a lot of that too, and stopping big attacks from actually approaching Raynor's side of the map, because a fungal would have threatened him. Burrowed Banelings would have had to be scanned for and thought about the entire time. Bjorn's 4th base was an orbital to probably make up for that gap of economy that he had because of his opener, so that would have always been vulnerable to run bias, so on and so forth. Like, there are vulnerabilities that don't usually exist for Bjorn in the style of game that he played, that Raynor also would be able to take advantage of once he kind of settled things at home. And Lurkers absolutely settled things. We got ourselves a very different game 3. Raynor has seen a command center. He sees only one supply depot, so for TC in the main base. And he has seen the Hellion shot, so he knows it is Hellions. What he has yet to know is that it is mech. Bjorn, not the most famous mech player in the world, but he is certainly one of the most diverse Terran players in the world, so he will be throwing this out, and I think it's a damn good thing to throw out. At this point, I think that there are multiple uses for the Cyclones. First use, all the things we talk about with Battle Mech. Good map control, effective trades, still, you know, very active style of play. They're just generally good and very annoying to deal with. Second thing, the bug. Now, I'm not saying any Terran players are thinking to themselves, I will abuse the bug, and I will abuse how much the Zerg players are tilting because of the bug. But I am saying it's a bonus. Not putting words in anyone's mouth, but it is a bonus. So I think you should be throwing out at least one Battle Mech build per best of TVZ series. If I was a coach to every Terran player in the world, that would be my suggestion. Thank God I'm not, though. Am I right? Honor Bjorns with another 10 gifted subs. Thank you very much. So beyond going into mech, something that Raynor is not yet aware of again. 4 gas has come up because the mid-game, or not the mid-game, the middle part of a Terran's build order is actually quite gas intensive. It's just like after you've built all your add-ons, started all your upgrades, and yeah, have 5 gases, and you're just like, okay, that's fine, I'm good enough. But if he sees a 5th and 6th come down really fast at the same time, that's when you can kind of tell from that, or you could just see Cyclones eventually pop their heads out. That's usually how you figure it out. So Raynor, did he actually see that is the question? I'm not sure they did. He sees a flying barracks though now, and he's like, oh God, come on. Yeah, it is going to be a lot of Hellions and those Cyclones. Raynor does not have a Roachmore, and he has been depending on Lane Baneling. He even grabbed a faster +1 Carapace, probably anticipating a certain type of Bjorn game. And so this is going to be rough. Blue Flame is done. The Ling's going in for a surround. The best possible engagement that a Ling Queen player could have against Blue Flame Hellions. Forget the Cyclones for a second. They're not that effective against Lings. But the Hellions were supposed to protect them. 8 Hellions go down. Meanwhile, almost 80 Lings fell. Well, 8 Hellions and 4 Cyclones. And so you got to consider that that was a lot of Lings. But that was still the best thing that Raynor could have done. Was it enough? I'm not sure, because 80 lings is a lot to lose. That is actually a very problematic position for Raynor. But that could have been even worse. Roaches are finally making their way out, but might be too late to save this base. Couple of lock-ons and that thing will disappear. Looks like enough transfuses are there to save it from being sniped, so Bjorn's going to have to play this out slowly. Roaches do not have roach speed. There are no Ravagers as well with the extra range of Corrosive Bile to have a little bit of that crowd control, and this is still a very, very dangerous position for Raynor. This Overlord finally goes down. 4th CC taken on location. Very confident in the map control that he has. Beyond also providing a little SimCity back at home. No defenses as of yet, though, at the 3rd. Maybe the Ling run-by will cause some interruption. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Gonna actually pull us back, maybe thinking that was gonna be bigger. Maybe thinking he needs to collect his forces anyway. He's getting ready for his real big push to Raynor's 4th, I think this was. Baneliness is on the way. Hive is on the way. Raynor did have to build so many lings to kill those Hellions, but he did survive, and he did get up to 81 drones. So he is starting to stabilize. That Cyclone Hellion is not done, and it will never be done. Never! Tries to go for a surround after already so much of that left side army had died. Oh, so much of it had gone. Beyond is going to be able to slip away, too. No surround was gotten, which Raynor was really hoping for. And the Roaches, with their locked-on deaths almost assured, are very, very scared to continue trying to push into that. Or surprisingly enough, only one Roach born. Only one Roach died? Are you serious? Usually at least 4 or 5 as soon as the Cyclones back away, but I guess they did lose high ground vision. More Cyclones, more pressure, and Raynor needs to do more than stabilize. He needs to get some real room to breathe here. Looks like he might have found that moment. Beyond surprised by the eagerness of the Roaches to take the engagement, is forced to pull back. I mean, that is the ebb and flow, but you just figure after enough of these back and forths, the Cyclones will come out king. They will have reduced the Roaches down to 10% health in one of the battles, and then to obviously 0% health in the next one. And then that's suddenly when the Zerg player is like, oh, I thought I was doing okay, but oh, I can't actually replace 60 army supply, and I am dead. Raynor has stopped that from happening. 5 bases going on to 6, 84 drones, just a couple more added in there, and he is starting to accumulate a bit of a bank as well, at least in those minerals. Hive has been done, but he did need to prioritize defending, engaging. So now starting up those upgrades. He's got 2-2 attack on the way. Shuttle hooks is about 80% done. Juno Glands also going to eventually finish. There have been no Ravagers, by the way, which I don't know if that is a tactical decision as far as like a composition choice, or ooh, a lot of lings, catch a couple Cyclones, or it is because just the timing has not worked out. I can see it both ways. Ravagers can take so long and take so much time and take up so much supply that I can see them not being so useful that you don't skyrocket to them if you're in trouble. But eventually Ravagers are pretty useful against this. So are Vipers, which I thought I had one on the way, but I guess I was wrong. Nope, no Vipers on the way. Infestors also could be useful, but Infestors coming in kind of late. Raynor is keeping a similar supply. It's just that the Lings are waiting for the perfect opportunity to go for a surround. It is mostly Cyclones at this point. Lings really trying, but also not having Juno Glands at this time is a little bit of a sour point. And Raynor, he went for it. He went for the last hurrah. It did not work, and he does tap out. Yes, he had a bit of a bank. Yes, he probably could have held on for a little while longer, but with that loss of a battle, he was going to lose this base, and I think he just saw the dominoes starting to fall. So he does tap out. And that's what I described. You know, just 2 minutes earlier. It's like, you know, you think you're holding, you think you're holding, you think you're holding. Oh my God, where's all my army? It's gone. Shit. And you're dead. And yeah, Raynor is definitely familiar with that. Had he gotten to Infestors faster, there's a chance. You know, if he had been able to build a decent Ravager count, there's also that. But he was barely hanging on with a lot of those. He was really hoping those surrounds of the Lings would come in faster and more effective. And they didn't. But it was a struggle from game. It was a struggle from Cyclone 1. Is the best way to put it, right? As soon as those Cyclones appeared and Raynor only just then realized it was Battle Mech, he had to spend so much money on Lings. So much larva on Lings. And he survived, but it was Not a good life. It was a half-life, etc., etc. And Bian wins 2-1. GG's. Oh, thanks, Honor Bjorns. Time to stand, methinks. Meow. What do you think be standing means? Why do you come over here and bother me? No. No. There's my deadlift for the day. Here we go. Look at this boy. Look at him. Look at him. Say hi. He's so heavy, oh my god. And he doesn't really like being picked up either. So he doesn't hold himself in a way that's really comfortable. Like our last big orange cat was around the same size, but Blazer was so used to being held. He would like tuck himself in and put his paws on your shoulder and you could carry him. This cat's just like, how you doing? What are you doing? It's weird. He's cute, but he's annoying. Yes, the same reaction I have when someone tries to pick me up. Stop that. Alright, you got ourselves some Terran versus Protoss checkout. In the bottom left it is Clem. On the top right it is Max Pax. Another 5. Get the subs from Honor Bjorn. Thank you very much. You have to excuse me sometimes. The cat known as Dimitri is clawing my leg because he wants attention. So we got Max Pax, who obviously does not play in offline tournaments. He will not be at EWC, but he is one of the leading Protosses in the world. And so he is worth checking out, even though I am purposefully studying EWC players for the most part. Because everyone loves it when a Protoss player does something worse than Max Pax and the commentators say, you know, if that was Max Pax, I think he would have won there. Everyone loves that. Seriously, though, he is often the bar that other Protoss aspire to, if not, you know, they actually aspire to. Certainly the bar that we hold all the other Protosses up to. I would say, personally, the way it goes is that the bar for macro control in PvT is set by Max Pax. And by that, I mean games that go on a bit longer and are about kind of the ebb and flow of the matchup and how the Protoss can control the Terran while expanding, while teching, while trading effectively, so on and so forth. Hero is setting the bar for Protoss's aggression and timings. That is, he is the one that you say, okay, if this was Hero, he would have won right there. Instead, he didn't, and he's lost the timing, and now the Terran player has a chance to make a comeback happen. They both are the leaders of the Protoss. Classic, I would love to throw in there, and I think obviously he is one, you know, his top 3 Protoss is pretty good. But it is not quite so clear-cut to me exactly what aspect of Protoss Classic is bringing to the forefront. I guess I could say maybe his... I actually don't even want to say his control, to be honest. I'm now sounding like a real Classic hater. I'm like, what does even Classic do? What is it? Like, who is he? Who is that? But no, to to me, it's really Hero and Max Packs, and Classic is kind of that third option that does both pretty well. Pretty well being, again, top 3 Protoss in the world. And so he does well, but it's not necessarily the person that I'm looking to, like we looked at Hero in the GSL Finals, or we look at Max Packs in every online finals that has ever existed. Anyway, aside from that, obviously we're also trying to figure out what the Terrans are now doing versus Protoss, as that has been a bit of a pickle for them. Double Reaper opener for Clem, didn't find a whole lot of success. 2 probes, 2 Reapers. Did also get the Scout, but with the Shield Battery and the Natural helping out the Hellions, this will not go any further. So I'd say, you know, high hopes for the Terran when you open up like this. You probably want to go for maybe more like 3 or 4 probe kills, but what are you going to do? This actually be a Phoenix opener. So Clem, he's building a Viking. We saw a Phoenix. This is interesting. We don't see many Stargate openers, really. You know, Twilight Council, by far and away the most common for the Protoss technology. Stargate does exist, but it's just not as common. We also don't see Phoenix if we do see a Stargate, but again, it's so uncommon, it's not even like we're seeing a lot of Oracle and Twilight Council openers either. But if it is going to be a Stargate opener, there used to be a common response to this. There's a mule. That was a fresh mule just got killed right there. Which was to go for Viking as a defense to help out. The range of the Viking is actually its bestest attribute, which I think people kind of forget. They don't realize like what is good about the Viking. But anyway, but then there is the choice to go aggressive with it, which is not what Clem is doing, but is something that Max Packs would have to be wary of. Is that this could be a second Viking on the way, and a second Cyclone on the way, and so on and so forth. But it's not. So Max Packs going into the Robo as well as he kills... Oh, I guess the Hellion jumped on in there. He is going to be going into Colossus. So this is a very alternative way to getting to Colossus rather than Twilight Council, 3 Nexus, Blink, Pressure, you know. But we are getting into Phoenix Colossus. And that means at least 5 Phoenix. The 5th one now popping out. We'll see how many more Max Packs goes into. This is interesting to see. I mean, Twilight Council works out so well for the Protoss that there seems to be no reason not to. But when you consider what Phoenix Colossus bring to the table, it does bring a very different first 5 to 6 minutes of the game, as a Cyclone does get a kill on a Phoenix, and this one's also in trouble. Uh-oh. Losing 2 Phoenix. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's not supposed to happen. This might not be multiple Cyclone, multiple Viking, but this was scarier. Observer is going to try and track it now. Sees the Widowmine. Yep, easy pickup. I mean, this is still a small enough army that you're not really terrified of dying, but it's also a kind of like clever enough army, if you will, that it's still scary. The micro potential is there. It's going to hold on to the map, at least. While Clem prepares a bigger, more well-rounded attack party. Phoenix is a couple of lifts for a handful of SCVs, but they are going to be needed back at home. I'll think about the reason for Max Packs changing things up in a second. Immortal is saved, but does lose its shield. Medivacs think they see an opportunity to go for a drop in the main. Are they right about that? The Phoenix just returned home. Clem is going to be able to unload. Not going to lose anything for that. Damn it. Yeah, not going to lose anything for that, and it still is a threat. Still something that Phoenix now have to worry about. Either they go into the main, they go into the natural, or they pair up on the third base. All is very scary. A very well-timed Colossus just popped out. That's perfect defense with the shield battery in the high ground against what is only Marines, particularly. And that is a solid setup of the defense for Max Packs. Clem grabbing his 3rd CC on location, knowing that he is going to be the bully. Decides to go for a big ol' surround, sees the opportunity. What a call there from Clem. Immortal will also fall. Sentry falls as well. And now we got the Widowmines barring the rest of the Protoss army. A couple of units sacrificed for the greater good, but the Phoenix are now looking awfully lonely, and they're going over Mass Marine, getting torn to shreds, 2 of them barely alive. Colossus once again in trouble. Shield battery out of juice. Zealots, no charge, not able to help. And that is game. That is game. Just as I was like, seems like a good hold. It wasn't. But yeah, nice call there from Clem. Do I think for the entire time that he was roaming around, he was looking for that exact opportunity? Maybe not necessarily, but he was trucking around for an opportunity. And getting the perfect sandwich was just what you get when you are that active. You know, like that's part of the reason you're so active and why active players are rewarded so much. It's because they're also scouting. They're scouting what their opponent is doing. They're scouting what their opponent's weaknesses are. And that was certainly a weak point. But now that we have this game done, I am wondering why he bothered opening up Stargate. Is it to break up monotony? I don't think so. I'm not going to say it's that reason. I will say that it does change the pace of the first 5 to 6 minutes, right? That's what I started off with. You are potentially more threatening to the Terran player. You know, the Terran player, as I said, could go for the Viking Cyclone push, which might be still a little scary even with recharge available. But if they don't, then the Phoenix have the map control. You know, they're not going to go for Wood of Mine drops. They're not going to go for any drops, right, against Phoenix. Tank pushes also aren't well advised against Phoenix, especially the earlier ones, because they're so tank-based, and the Phoenix obviously just pick up the tanks. So there's that. There's all that. And I wonder if maybe this is either something that Max Pax is losing to versus Terran. So he's trying to find another avenue of openings for Protoss. Or he's afraid that might be something that the Terrans continue to improve on. And so he wants an alternative way of playing in his pocket. Which is really funny to say. I'm saying as if he's having this like brand new experiment, when obviously this is a very old style of PvT. It's just that with the dominance of the Twilight Council opener, the Stalkers in a century, the third Nexus after 2 or 3 gateways, into the Colossus, it's so dominant. And it is so versatile. Like, you can do a lot of things with it that we do not see Stargate openers or Robo openers. And so it's you know, it's not brand new, but in the context of our meta, it's kind of it's worth asking why. Yeah, and Storm openers are now really big too. It's like, but why this one instead? So you'd have to ask Max Pax. It did not work. I think it was working. I think he was okay until he was perfectly surrounded. And so I do not think he will do it again. Game 2 coming up. He knows everyone's builds because they're practicing with him. He's not going to events. I do wonder. That's a good question. How much is he the de facto practice partner for Protoss matchups? You know, are the Koreans even asking him? They're like, look, man, there's only so many top tier Protoss here. Paula. Game number 2 is going to be on Tokamak. Bottom left, Max Pax. Top right, Clem. Clem with an amazing find. As I said, I'm going to go ahead and assume it wasn't some type of game where you think, okay, my army's going to go to the left, and this army's going to go to the right, and then I'm going to envision me just collapsing on the Colossus on the third base. Maybe. Could have been. But I do think that the way StarCraft 2 plays is more fluid than that. It's about maybe thinking that is an opening, right? Like, in general, you're thinking he's going to have very few amount of units. That's kind of Protoss's deal. And I'm going to find units that are split, mispositioned, not in the right numbers. But to, say, like, this is going to work out absolutely perfectly. I think it's more fluid than that. And I think it is going down to just how active a person is. Active with aggression means active with scouting, means actually being able to act on weak points, which is why so many of us plebs on the ladder fail at that. It's like, this Protoss is impossible to beat, and we're missing gigantic periods of times where they are totally weak. Goes in as active. You know, doing a lot of history noting for a StarCraft history podcast that I'm doing, and being deep into the Brood War timeline now. It's been really cool reading up all these big brain strats that have evolved, which is going to happen in StarCraft 2 as well, but it seemed so much more structured in the beginning. I think of either game, as far as I can remember of StarCraft 2, way back in 2010, where there just was so much less going on, I think is actually appropriate to say. There was just so much less. People were not nearly as good in so many ways. That you would see a lot more players talk about these like envisioned games where they're this guy always does this, so I'm going to do that, and then this is going to beat him at this exact moment because this is the exact build that he does, and it actually working, or alternatively completely failing. You know, and there's not really a lot of, and then the rest of the game happened. It was like, it was all based on this one thing. Fuck me if it doesn't work. And I just don't think we hear nearly as much about that. The later both games developed, where there's obviously still timings, there's obviously still build orders and build order wins and advantageous positions based off of what you've done, pre-planned, so on and so forth. But so many more of the games, especially as they get longer and longer, obviously just go more and more into thinking on your feet. We got a high ground command center from Clem. And Axpax does like still some of the early aggression, but this is just an adept into adept, which if it wasn't for this opener could be a little sketch, but a Hellion, a Reaper, 2 Marines, kind of a good tag team against 2 adepts. Into the Stalker and into the Blink. Will Maxpax get a Sentry? He could. Not every Protoss does it every game, but he could. What Maxpax usually does every game is going to be going into a War Prism. When Adept does go down, trying to keep its kind of map control, but then Clem brought a couple more Marines and got the jump on it, and that's the second difference of the Adept being alive versus dying. At least this Adept is still alive, trying to get as much scouting as possible, but a Medevac has just lifted up 2 Widow Mines, is heading across the map, and the Sentry was not built, so we do not have the follow-up scout, right? Okay, I didn't miss that, right? That was just from the probe, or an Adept getting in or something. That would say that was, okay, when another Adept gets in, particularly a Widow Mine drop. This is going to see a Raven being built, or maybe, technically, it could be a Cloakless Banshee, but yeah, no upgrade on the way. And Clem, he's trying to micro on the front lines, also trying to micro on the defense. Woohoo! Ditto on Max Pax, who was this close to getting a lot of probes killed. Both of them lose 2 workers, and then otherwise are A-okay. Let's talk about War Prism. Max Pax actually does not grab it. Either he was going to grab it and then he had to defend and deciding not to, or he actually decided not to go for more emphasis on the aggression. He almost always does. He almost always adds the Warp Prism, and then it's more of how many Stalkers does he warp in. But now he is forgoing a good number of Stalker warp-ins, and he's forgoing the Warp Prism itself. So that's more money in his pocket for what is other things, like a Forge, Charge, Robotics Bay, what have you. Medevac is not going to be caught. No, it was not. We can see that there was a chase on it, though. Max Pax now just positioning the Stalkers that he did create into some scouting positions in case Clem might throw something a little bit awkward. You know, like a Medevac over the left, we don't usually see it, or a Marine hit squad over to the right where no one would ever think about doing that. Yeah, instead, having that information should he need it, and the Observer really getting the information that is needed, which is that everything is back at home. Just a Hellion roaming around the streets. Forge is done. +1 attack should be on the way. Charge is on the way. Not quite yet into the Robotics Bay. I expect that to be a next move. 6-worker difference is not exactly where the Protoss wants to be. Might get into that 8-worker one that you would like. 3rd CC only just started here for Clem, which is not uncommon. Just saying. As the 3 barracks are now getting finalized. 1 medevac is out. Reactor on the starport has not been built yet. I guess it was being used to swap around. It did build that Raven, which, yeah, where's that Raven? Oh, there it is. There it is. Chillin'. Cornered. Until the stalkers move, and then it can go for harassment. They move so that the Raven will think there is an opportunity, and then maybe they could kill it. Well, they wouldn't be able to kill it, but they'd be able to injure it. Well, now they really do move. A shield battery will stop a good number of probes from dying, so best to focus on other things. Not going to be Robotics Bay. It is going to be Templar Archives. We're going to have Storm on the menu, and it does seem more and more popular. Personally, I like it either way. I like when Storm comes out first. I also like when Storm comes out eventually. You know, when you go Colossus first. What I don't like is that, you know, people thought that you just shouldn't get Storm if you didn't go for it immediately. I was like, it's not worth it. EMPs are available. Storm sucks. I always thought that was a bit of a reach. Even though EMP is good and it used to be better. Warp Prism was finally created and does go into the natural. A couple of Zealots just for a bit of bother. Clem is being bothered himself. Looks like a minion was actually killed. Doodad on the map. Warp Prism still going for the annoyances. Finds a Marauder. Not going to bother picking up the Zealots. We got bigger issues. Drop in the main base. Catches Max Packs. Maybe a little off guard. But it kills a backup pylon. So everything's still charged up. 4th Nexus on the way. And Stalker's hoping to find the medevac. As an observer is scanned. Looks like Clem realized that his drop was not as much of a surprise as it should have been. Oh, but there's the surprise. Gotcha. Losing any sort of alternative attack while still having his quote-unquote like main attacks that stuck at home. Clem's supply does look totally fine. He's only behind by 4 workers and he's ahead by almost 20 army supply. This looks more than fine because while Templar Archives are made, where are the actual High Templars? Oh no, they're in the Warp Prism. All right, there you go. Nope, we're fine. And that is the issue. It's like, okay, great. 20 army supply lead. How much of that disappears because a couple of juicy storms go down. And then Clem is also well aware of that. Did he actually scout the Templar Archives? He did. The Raven has been chilling, scouting, knowing. And so he's not eager to move out, especially after it's already been delayed. And so there's a bigger opportunity for Max Bax to already have his positioning, already have his micro focus, already have something as far as like a run-by set up. So Clem is not going to move out. He's going to have to play a little bit of a turtley style here, which I don't know if there's really an alternative, but it also kind of sucks. Not able to pressure the Protoss is when they go from having an okay number of workers and a respectable number of Nexus to an ungodly amount. Sometimes even double expanding at this point when they really have a lot of the control over the game and they realize that the Terran player has gone for the, okay, I guess I can't move out style. You know, I guess I gotta just go to 4th base and prepare for the attack against me. Wait for my upgrades, Vikings, Ghosts, and a maxed out army supply. And then Liberators as well. But there is usually this very big lull. The Terran players don't feel all that comfortable moving out. Factory not going to be used. Vikings positioned against a Warp Prism potential. Marines and missile turrets on the left side. I do like that. Wouldn't mind also is a good thing to include there. Actually, I'm a little surprised the factory. Well, I don't know about lifting the factory. This is not the first Terran ever do this. But what I am worried about is not what the Widowmine count is now, which is okay. It's 9 Widowmines. That's very helpful. I'm worried more about the game goes on. There's a battle that is quite close. The Protoss player goes to Remax instantly, which is usually with Zealots. And then having 0 Widowmines in that. Zealots coming on the left side. Widowmines barely not hitting them. EMPs on the right side, though, make this a very vulnerable army. And it was already pretty vulnerable to begin with. Not a lot of Zealots were there. These ones finally getting hit by the Widowmines. There you go. And the planetary remains intact. Only 3 SCVs go down. Excellent handling of a 2-pronged attack there. Max Pax, I mean, he was looking for opportunities that didn't actually exist, but he was looking. And so if there wasn't one, he's not going to just go ahead and close his eyes and hope that it works out. He pulls back, he gathers himself, and he is very apprehensive. You know, there is a possibility that Clem chooses that moment to counterattack, realizing that he's pushed back enough attacks that there's a bit of an opening. And that's exactly what he's doing, but Storm's on the choke, ready to go. Colossus is going to try and abuse it as long as they possibly can. 4 Colossus available against only 3 Vikings, though, more than that. 7 of them, but that's still not quite enough. You probably want more like 12. And then to go any higher, even against 4 Colossus instead of 3, is always a tough decision. Because the more you have, the faster they fall. But the more you have, the more you also don't have, like, Ghosts and Marauders and Medivacs. So it's a bit of a dilemma. It's a personal preference, I guess. Max Pax does not have another setup of a run-by, but you know who does? Clem. But is that going to be a mistake? Because need this back at home. He is tucked into the 3rd base, unfortunately, meaning the Storms are very effective. A couple of Storms on top of the Vikings as well, but the Colossus not falling fast enough. Some of them are derping, though. Not hitting the core of the units, rather hitting a missile turret or a wood of mine or something like that, but Clem does have another squadron of army that's coming in from behind. Max Pax might be overstaying his welcome. I thought they were actually on the ground coming from behind, but they were not. They just picked up. Maybe they stopped a base from coming up. Maybe they got maybe they got the probe that was over there. But that seems to be all they did. This is still 4 base versus 5 base, which really is totally okay for a Terran player. Max Pax has not dominated the map with bases, does not have a 4,000, 2,000 bank. He is going to have to be very careful with these engagements. None of them proving to be a massive success for him, even though that looked like it was starting off really well. The army just tucked in. Looked very dangerous indeed, but ended up hanging on. No! That's a good start to the battle. Great start to the battle. Clem looks away. Thank God Disruptors don't one-shot Marauders anymore, but still a very weak and a Terran force. Storms available once again. One of them gets EMP'd. Looks like that's going to be it for the AoE. As the Colossus fall and the Disruptor is out of its shot. Vikings will land, create a little Sim City as well, and this will once again be a hold, but this was worse. This was worse. Clem did not have enough of a bank. Was forced to pull the SCVs, so on and so forth. He is now down by 40 overall supply. So Clem is in a bit of trouble. He does have a 5th and a 6th, and he's now trying to get a 5th on location. With the 6th, I guess, being the orbital for the mules, and that's something he really does need, is to be mule dropping at this point. But Max Pax, well, he hasn't grabbed a 6th, sorry, and a 7th base, like some other Protosses might have at this point. He has made sure to keep his 5 bases saturated, and so he has had a bigger bank to delve into after these battles, even though he is slightly losing in the resources lost. It's not good enough. Clem actually using that 5th base as a little Sim City, trying to get a really good engagement going, but this doesn't look like it's going to be it. 3 Colossus still standing, although one should fall very soon. Second one also should fall, and that is once again a lacking AoE army, but we're filling it with a lot of other units. Well upgraded units at this point too. 3-2 versus 2-2. Drop in the main taken care of, and that is going to be that. Max Pax, with a solid macro game, wins game 2. Here is another cat for your viewing pleasure. You smell like cat food. You're being remarkably calm. Oh, there it is. Nom, 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 nom. Nom, nom, nom. Ah! Hey, it's my foot. No! I don't know why she attacks my feet. Stop it. And the last game of this best of 3 is going to be on Pylon. On the top left, it is Max Pax. And on the bottom right, it is Clem. And he is sending a cheeky SCV, isn't he? Isn't he? While we wait for this SCV to determine what exactly the build is going to be. It is going to be multiple Raxes here. I'm going to point out that there's 3 cats staring at me as if they expect something. What do you want? Ow! And one's attacking my foot. I am accidentally going to step on you, and you're not going to like it. Alright, so the second SCV was sent out. That's why I figured it was going to be a 2 Rax. And also this SCV did not go right across the map into the natural for an engineering bay block, which was... also a possibility, but nope. Clearly gonna be a 2 Rax. Clem is like, okay, no thank you on the TVP front. No me likey. No me gusta. And is gonna go ahead and 2 Rax and, well, hope to end the game that way. Max Pax, as most Protoss do, can go for Probe Scout. This should set him up well enough to defend, provided that he micros correctly. You also want to see, you know, which 2 Rax version it is. I mean, technically it could be a 4 Rax Marines. There is 0 gas. It is very much a gas. Max Pack's going to make the bold decision to defend the natural. We have technically seen this backfire. Hero versus Maru, it was very much telegraphed, and Hero built 5 shield batteries, was it? And still died. A lot of the defense against the Marauder attack can revolve around probe usage. Marauders, not that great against probes, or any worker. They attack slowly, but bigly. Which means worker surrounds are actually quite effective. Hey. The Zealot was built, just gonna chill. He knows the attack is on the way. There really is no other option. Just a matter of patience? Yeah, patience. Probe scouts also what direction it's coming in from, which can be helpful too. Sees the attack incoming. Another shield battery is already being prepared. Decides he doesn't need a third one. Clem decides that's not the opportunity he was looking for. He's going to wait for more Marauders and hope that he gets up to an almost like 1 shot. At the very least 2 shot, because you're right, you're shooting through shield battery recharging. So, yeah, 1 shot, it would take a lot of Marauders. I'm not sure how many. But 2 shot, usually something that you can get up to. It's a lot of nothing happening for a while, but the fear is still there. The biggest difference, I would say, is whether or not the probes get any type of surround. Second pylon is on the way. This is quite the good-looking defensive setup, but I am thinking about that Maru Hero game. Probes are being built, probably because I'm more so thinking about being used in the battle. Like, this looks like he's trying to build them into economy and prepare to play a macro game. He knows there's no macro game. I think he's more so legitimately thinking of using them. Especially if some SCVs are pulled. Hello, boys. Probes, help! More probes, more probes. Uh-oh. One more soccer falls. Zealot's still in the action. Shield batteries still have juice on them, but we are running low on actual attacking units. And that is what is problematic about this hold. No, once again, it's happening. This is exactly what happened in Hero Maru. A shield battery is a Guardian Shield, there we go, is very effective alongside the shield battery. The Sentry is apparently an immortal. It just does very little damage to Marauders, so all the Marauders seem like they're still alive. How many died? 3 of them. But 4 Stalkers, 2 Zealots died. And, yeah, I honestly believe you can hold that. Okay, first of all. I feel like if you make sure to have 16 probes at your natural, though, and you pull them as soon as you realize you're going to go in for it, I mean, the Terran could then kind of play around and, you know, try and go in for it and then not go in for it, and the probes with a lot of lost mining time, and there is that, but I'm sure Protoss players expand as a defense here because somehow, sometimes they do defend against that on the low ground. It's just funny that we've caught 2 times that did not work. And maybe you should just high ground defend. I mean, maybe that is the very simple answer. But also, maybe you should pull the probes faster. I really thought he was going to pull the probes immediately, but he'd only pulled 2. There's like a 3-shot there. Regrets. Max Pax might have been immediately disappointed. He might have been disappointed as soon as the stalker died. Realizing he went too far forward. Yeah. Because he probably shouldn't have played with that, you know? Probably shouldn't have played with it. Probably should have just let more shield batteries die. And they weren't dying particularly slowly, so I know it's like it's not that much of an additional time, and you do want shield batteries as part of your defense. You can't just let all of them die. But I also wonder how much faster you can grab a second gateway. I don't know. This is the second time we've seen this die on the low ground. You can't not build the shield batteries now, because what if they actually just attack at this point? So these are definitely necessary. Maybe that's why he pulled away. He thought maybe he could get away with the gateway before shield battery. Yeah, I think that's exactly why he pulled away. He thought he could fit it in. And he was like, no, don't want to play with fire. So yeah, it's kind of the fastest you can get that. Yeah, you go for an immortal instead. You can't build the stalkers. You'd have too little gas. You never got a second gas. I mean, the same thing that happened in Mario Hero happened here, which is at the end of the day, the shield batteries actually can't save stalkers. No matter how many shield batteries there are, a stalker will eventually die. They'll get 3-shot by this number of marauders, apparently. If shield batteries healed simultaneously, that would be different. And if overcharge existed, that would be different. Yeah, I think the play is you can't move out like that. You gotta like let them kill shield batteries and replace them as they die. So then maybe he really shouldn't have been pulling the probes or building them. Every round of probe production is a shield battery he could have been making, and thus sacrificing for more time, maybe. I don't know. It'll be interesting seeing Max Pax defend against it again. Like, we need to go into his replay folder and find the next time he defends against the 2-racks. Who even is the second best player who never went to an offline event? I don't think there is one. You know, if they've gone to an event, if they're good, they would have gone to some type of event. Yeah, very, very unique. Very unique situation.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing
Yeah,
the
the computer
overmind.
is struggling right now. Vertaloon, thank you for 3 months. Thanks for the cast. You're welcome. I'm going to complain about money for a second. So, I did 2 ESL events. And I have not been paid for either of them. Because I created the invoice as I usually do, like exactly like I usually do. And they approved it like they do. And then they're supposed to pay after 30 days when they approve it. And only after 35 days did I say, hey, what's going on? And they said, oh, actually, you didn't create the invoice correctly. It's very frustrating. I was just checking my emails and that reminded me of that frustration. The life of a freelancer. I'm just especially bothered. Like, you know, the whole like you did your invoice wrong is fair game if they didn't approve it initially. Because if they never approved it, I would have been like, oh, okay, why isn't it being approved way sooner? So that's a little frustrating. And then of course it's not like they're in a hurry to pay you. They're like, oh, we have another 30 days to pay her. That's great. Hi. This is Dimitri. He's kind of a butt. He's decided this is his chair. Here we go. Want to say something? Meow. Fine, we'll give him cat treats. Ziggy, hello. Cat treats. Ow. Meh. Meh. Ow. You know, you're part of the reason this is so difficult. Ziggy, Apollo. Assume the position. Two. Go farther. Go farther. Go farther. Move. Ziggy. Ziggy. He's afraid to walk past Wicket. Oh my god, Wicket. Just bopped him. Just bopped him. Hello. You see how afraid Dimitri is to eat wickets? He's like, oh my god, she's gonna attack me. It's called sharing. Everyone has to do it. Hey. Oh, whoop. No fighting. Maybe he just likes chicken with crab more than chicken with cheese. Ow! Ow! Oh. Wicked. Apollo! Apollo's so late though. Can't even see him. Dimitri, let Apollo have it. Made sure he got the last little remnants at least. And those are my cats. Definitely all the cats we have. What emote should Wicket be if I ever get one?
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the Overmind.
Whoops, I broke it. Queen Wicket. Hey, Fee, thank you for the 6 months. I just toppled on my SSD tower. There we go. Ain't got enough hands for pets. There have been times. I've run out of room in my bed. Try having 4 cats on your bed. Wicket bullies everyone, except Nugget, who bullies her. Yeah, Ziggy would rather deal with Dimitri. Did Ziggy lose an upper tooth? No. He still has his fangs. He's got little fangs. Like a rogue from D&D. Sneak attack damage. Yeah, she's queen bee as far as the boys go. She's queen of them all. Somehow she wiggled her way into the pack and then took over the pack. Well, we've cast a lot of TVZ so far. So I think I should cast a PVZ. So that's what we're going to do if the stream doesn't break. We're going down. My computer needs a restart. All right, last cast. It's a best of 3 ZVP. The top left of Incorporeal. 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 And the top left it is Max Pax, and then the bottom right it is Rainer. Oh no, I have the hiccups. It's amazing that no one's had the hiccups on broadcast. Not that I can remember anyway. Fortunately, I have the trick that I use to get rid of hiccups, and it works like half the time, is to like draw in a really big breath and then a little more, actually, and then hold it. And apparently that like drawing a deep breath and then another breath on top of that actually like activates something in your brain that doesn't affect hiccups, but it affects something else. It affects like you do it when you want to calm down. If you have like anxiety, like you have like an anxiety attack, apparently that does something in your brain. So I wonder if like whatever it does in your brain, because I totally forgot where I learned this. I'm just making shit up, telling you a bunch of false truths. And maybe that's why like the brain also is like, oh, okay, never mind. Because like hiccups are just like you're getting out of order, right? Anyway, it's like a reset. I fixed it. So we got a PVZ. Max Pax is doing pretty well in this matchup as well. Again, he's not going to EWC. There were rumors, as there have been for the last 2 years, that he was thinking about it, and I do believe him when he, he thinks about it more legitimately every tournament. But I also think that like his parents influence him, and he's got social anxiety. These are all guesses. He's never confirmed anything, but like that's my guess. And he is still relatively young, so getting quote unquote over that stuff is pretty difficult. Anyway, he is very good at PVZ, so while he might not be at EWC, as we were discussing in the chat, he very well might be like the most abused practice partner right now. Someone who is absolutely not going to be your opponent in this premier event, but who would very likely be one of your hardest opponents if he did go to the premier event. I mean, you just don't usually get that good of practice. So usually you always have to worry about the guy you're practicing against in these tournaments being someone you're going to face, and then you just revealed how you're playing. And while I don't think there's really a lot of amazing behind-the-scenes stories of someone hiding a superb style or a superb build, I do think it does exist to some degree. And it could very well be the tiniest little things, like how people set their overlords can be something to look into. How people send their probe over. How often people are aggressive with their adepts versus defensive. So Max Pax does open up with a Stargate. He goes pretty quickly into a Twilight Council, though. So Resonant Glaives follow-up. Rainer has had some troubles in this matchup and does emphasize on his stream how important the Oracle damage is, or hopefully lack thereof. And that if you do lose just one too many drones in the early game, it can feel like an uphill battle. And that means you say more than 1 or 2 drones. I'm talking maybe 1 or 2 drones, actually. For some Zergs, it might be that extreme. For others, it's maybe more like if you lose 5, then yeah, you might as well tap out right then and there. 1 or 2 is acceptable, but any more than that, and you're dead. So far, only 1 drone and a Ling have died. Their next is on the way. The Overlord was actually rather courageously perched. I don't know if Raynor personally did that or what, but the Stalker was built, something that he's probably going to be very, frustrated with because it also killed the Overlord. Oh! I was going to say he's already frustrated, unbeknownst to him, because that Overlord may have had an opportunity to scout how fast the Twilight Council was. Maybe. If it had gone in 60 seconds earlier, it would have seen the Twilight Council, probably as it finished. And earlier, at least it was in building. And unfortunately, it dies instead. It doesn't get the scout and it dies. That's very frustrating. And the Stalker also does a further job of convincing Raynor that there is not going to be an adept-based attack on the way. Pro gamers, I think, are wise enough to know that it is a possibility, but when you're playing a razor-thin game, I think particularly as a Zerg player, where it's very important what you make in the drones and army with larva, this is the risk you take. Whenever you're like, Stalker, okay, I'm going to build a couple more drones. Oh my god, it's adepts. Fuck me. These 2 adepts on the front lines do get screwed over a bit, and this 3rd one as well, so that's a better start. 3 more adepts, totally healthy, alive, and together would be quite a lot more. Now it's only 5 adepts. The Lings also managed to survive in good parts to the micro. And this is a beautiful hold of something that was totally unscouted. Even the drones staying alive against the Oracle harassment, and an Oracle even dying. Huh. Well, I can tell you that's not how that was supposed to go. That, from soup to nuts, that was not how it was supposed to go. And that also has even bigger repercussions because they did not get any type of scouting done. Not that they would have seen the Spire, I think. They would have definitely been put down after the Adepts had moved on or died in a more efficient way. But that was very, very inefficient from MaxPax. And now he has 1 less Oracle to kind of dance around with. The Oracle that stayed alive is also very injured, so he might be less eager to try and send it in the kind of, what about a Spire path? The one that goes all the way back here, So that's very dangerous news. MaxPax didn't get a scout on the 6th gas, or the 7th and the 8th that are currently building, which would also be a tell on the Spire, but he's not getting those scouts. This is very, very dangerous for MaxPax, who's already, like, probably his main focus is trying to find damage. Not necessarily about trying to scout. He does finally get a scout. I do believe the Adept trade went close enough to see that Spire, although it is very limited nowadays. That should have been close enough. And then what is the response? I'd say aggression while trying to build tag defense. I mean, if they didn't see it before, they definitely see it now. The Adepts decide to go for the Shade here. That is a lot of Adepts, my goodness. But the +1 melee is done, and once again, the drones remain relatively untouched. 1 Adept, 2 Adepts get into the main base. It's not a very big deal. Mutas are on the way. More Adepts are getting surrounded. MaxPax is losing so many units. These are not units that shoot up. They would not help against the Mutas. But the idea would be, this is like in ZVZ when you throw your roaches across the map against Mutas. The idea is that usually you can get some type of damage done, as well as buy some time. Have the Mutas defend the Adepts first, then come across the map. Have the Adepts find damage in the natural and the 3rd, and even more annoyance in the main. And instead, they got shut down about as fast as they possibly could. MaxPax has built and lost 30 Adepts. He built 13 more beyond that. Blink did finish. He did not start building a Stalker count. Shockingly enough. I mean, he built more Adepts when these Adepts were dying. I guess because he's... I think I actually do get it. You know what? This is definitely not a mistake. Not that I would think it was a mistake, but just... I think I know why he's doing it. His main concern is actually dying to the Lings. He figures the Mutas can be dealt with maybe static defense, which he did build, And then whatever Phoenix he can manage to pop out. Now, it was only 2 or 3 when I was just talking, so that's not very dependable. But now it is getting up to 4 and even 6. And so the Adepts were the stopgap for the Ling pressure that was going to arrive with those mutas. And that's really cool-headed. I certainly was panicking and wondering where the Stalkers were. And I think other Protoss might have also panicked and put a lot of mental focus on the mutas. And built Stalkers with Phoenix. And then they would have lost Stalkers to the Lings. So that's actually really... I mean, it's smart in general, if you have time to think about it. But to think about it in the heat of the moment, it's quite impressive, but clearly showing a lot of experience in this scenario. Shockingly, I mean, I don't still really think MaxPax has a great game going for him, but he has 4 bases. And if 4 bases that are still alive, that is actually amazing. Raynor saved almost all of his drones from all of those Adept attacks. 100 Lings, not even a bad trade for 31 Adepts. And so he's fine too, but this, I feel like, had the potential to go way worse in both directions. The Adepts could have done way worse, or way better, depending on how you look at it, and the Mutas could have done the same. Corruptors were built as it was clear the Phoenix number was going to rise up high enough to really depend on them. These are not just emergency 1 or 2 Mutas. And this is also the most stable way to play against Mutas. With Stalkers, you can be put out of position, you can be forced into a base trade. It is very difficult to read. With Phoenix, basically the read is I beat the Mutas, I might not beat the Corruptors. With a couple of Stalkers helping out as well, it seems like it might just be good enough. Corruptor count actually wasn't that high either. +1 air weapons, though, is not done for the Phoenix, and this is where Roddy... We need a gif of Roddy shaking his head. You know, we need him to do the in control shake of his head. We need that meme with Roddy for when Phoenix do not have +1. Someone make it for me. Probes have been pulled and then died into whatever they're pulled away from, into now the army on the front line. So 23 probes in total have gone down. MaxPax still having a lot of difficulty defending multi-pronged aggression, as those Corruptors were they're just barely enough, really. Just barely. You can see that the count has really lessened, and that's not just because they've been dying, but because Raynor has not been remaxing on Mutas. He has emphasized the ground army, which MaxPax knew would happen eventually, but still did not manage to get everything in the right place at the right time with the limited resources and time that he had. This is a rather desperate attack across the map, and at the end of the day, Raynor's choice here does win him the game. It looked like for a second MaxPax was going to stabilize, but it was not to be. And at 75 supply, 3 bases against a pretty much untouched Zerg economy, I think MaxPax knows he is pretty screwed. Oh, there's that +1. And legitimately, if he had +1, I'm not quite sure how he would have been able to afford it, but if he did, when the Corruptor and Muta battle happened, I think he demolishes that. +1 on Phoenix are no joke. Is no joke. Anyway, Raynor wins. GG's. It's best of 3, so game number 2 is coming up. There goes Dimitri into his catfish. And his head pops out. Isn't it cute? He's cute. And he sits all regally in his catfish. Yes, this is mine. Game 2 is going to be on ley lines. In the bottom left, it is MaxPax. In the top right, we have Raynor. Raynor looked sharp as hail. I don't know if I really emphasized that, because there were some interesting dynamics happening. But that was very impressive. The defense of the Adepts with the Lings from start to finish was very impressive. I don't know if +1 melee was done for the very first Adept defense. Might have been. Obviously, that does help. But even with that, it still can be easy to misjudge the Ling versus Adept scenario. Because Lings with +1, better than Lings without +1. Would have thunk it. If they don't get a surround, or if they get a surround but on a number of adepts that still, you know, basically has reached their critical mass, like they still could die. And replacing them is not technically cheap, I guess, with so many Lings that you need, but I was thinking more in the larva. Replacing Lings, if you misjudge the adept battle, can be the biggest strain on the Zerg because of the larva issue. So suddenly they can't use all their money, the Queen's trying to defend, but they're not as mobile, and then the Ling starts to go, you know, 5 or 6 or 8 at a time into the adepts, get slaughtered, and it can be a real snowball in the opposite way. I mean, when you go for a Ling-based defense against the adepts, you are looking for the surrounds, and you're looking usually for the surrounds when they are far away from the drones. So that's the other thing that was kind of amazing about how that went down. Raynor had the units, he had the micro, he had the surrounds, but he did still have to deal with adepts in the drone line, and he yet still somehow only lost 3 drones to what ended up being almost 30 adepts. Not all of them were in the drone line, so that's why I say almost, but 30 adepts died. And only 3 drones died. That's crazy. You could say maybe Max Pax didn't focus fire because he was... Oh, after the first wave of adepts, he was... And well, let's say after the second wave scouted the spire. There you go. He was probably more so just hoping to buy time than he was trying to individually micro and make sure he got the maximum drone damage, because he needed to get going on those static defenses, he needed to get going on the static on the Phoenix building and the Stargate building. But still, I think that's pretty amazing. And then on top of that, the Oracles came in for that usual wombo combo, and they died instead of doing any more drone damage. They just got a stasis trap off. Like, that was amazing. And it set Raynor up so well. He was able to get to the Spire without any problems. And while Max Pax did an almost equally good job in a different sense of having the preparation against the mutas, of making the tough decisions when you needed to make them, you know, it still was not enough. I think he was still the one that was more so reeling off of his opponent's build than the other way around. But it's a fresh game. It's a fresh start. We got ourselves some serious adept pressure from the very first one to now the next one, and perhaps even with the third. As all 2 adepts are alive, the third one is about to pop. It's going to stay at home by the looks of things. Maybe we build up to 5 adepts and them across the map. Or maybe we just keep a safe third base setup. So one of the things that could have also tipped off Raynor, by the way, to there being a possibility of faster adepts, which, yeah, maybe that helped him have his army in position at the right time, was that there was no third Oracle. There's really just there's a couple things you can do with the Stargate. Well, there's a lot of things you do with the Stargate. Void Ray, Phoenix Oracle, 1 Oracle, 2 Oracle, 3 Oracles. Okay. But the idea is that usually if you're going to go Oracles, 1 Oracle is a guarantee. 2 Oracles is very usual, almost a guarantee. The third Oracle is the one that's a little trickier. The third Oracle can either be made immediately, or it could be held off for post-Twilight Council, or it could be made not at all. And that was what he did last game, and perhaps what he's going to do again in this game. And the Zergs might be able to pick up on that, you know, C2 2 Oracles, 2 Oracles, 2 Oracles. If they get a Ling over on this base, they see that there's no third Oracle staying at home, and they're like, oh, okay. You emphasized some additional technology because you did not grab 150-50. 150 Oracle. This Overlord, once again, could get some freebie scouting. Unfortunately, Raynor not thinking about it as he is defending Oracle Adept harassment. See, at this point, he could try and send 20 Lings across the map and hope to cancel a third base, but he does need them at home, and he is not going for a surplus of Lings. Just enough to deal with the Adepts while the Queens can try and take on these Oracles. Overlord died and also temporarily supply blocked him. Very temporarily, I think. Without getting that main scout. It did see 2 Stalkers built, though, which, I mean, to really look into it, right? Like, 1 Stalker killed an Overlord last game. No additional ones were made. It was all about the Adepts, right? A second Stalker could already be a reveal that he's going into Blink. Now, I think the question would more so be how fast is that Blink? Was it emphasized so much more than anything else, like chrono-wise, or is it just coming along kind of casually? Because sometimes that early decent number stalker attack, shall we call it, like 12 stalkers, I guess, can be enough to get the ball rolling for the Protoss. Sometimes we even see them dive after a 4th hatch and try and get the snipe before there's a reaction. It's not that, though. Blink is not being done particularly quickly. Stasis Trap is going to help cover the stalkers, though, without Blink. And the Oracles are full of juice. So the Lings can theoretically not get us around here. Stasis Trap kind of baited right there. He knew it was there. And we got another Ling squad ready to go for the surround, which I think is going to happen in 1 second. One more Stasis Trap is available. Obviously, Pulsar Beam can help out too. Little misclick there. There you have it. Another Stasis Trap gets popped. Raynor decides to go for it. Blink is not quite done there. It finishes in the nick of time, but still we're going to have a recall. Yep. Didn't... Oh, because Stalkers came here. I was like, why did he kill the last Stalker? Because Stalker's reinforcing, and Raynor, he's hungrier than just one Stalker. He needs 4 Stalkers to really fill him up. Doesn't find it, though. Max Pax saves all of his Stalkers? All of his Stalkers. Raynor can at least breathe easy. That hatchery, as you see, it can be sniped. Can be a bit dangerous. It is not. Creep spreads on the way back as well. 5th hatchery on the way. Storm, charge, +2 for the Protoss. Raynor setting his sights on Hydras and probably Lurkers with the Hive on the way too. Ooh, that is a big Ling run by, catching not just probes but also a High Templar. That is a nice use of +1 melee Lings. Stalkers are on the forefront of the 4th again, but there's a lot of Lings still ready to go. The Stalker is going to try and take as efficient of trades as possible, but the Oracles will be better. Oh, nope, those Stalkers weren't great. Oh, and these ones, uh-oh, Link's coming back in. It's a bit dangerous. They're waiting for the Blink. They know the Blink is going to happen. That's the micro that we're seeing here. Very... trying to anticipate, basically. It's very clever. And the Oracles are actually running out of juice. They're no longer able to help as much. And unfortunately, this looks like a just colossal loss of Stalkers. 83 Lings died, 11 Stalkers, but also the 7 probes and a High Templar. It's not game ending, but that was, I think, very much worth it for Raynor, who not only takes all the damage there, he takes all those units down, but he also just pushed Max Packs completely, 100% back. A lot more creep spread, a lot more connecting of the bases, a lot more drones, a lot more technology that'll actually finish and be ready in time. Raynor is all over this. Like white on rice. Which I've always heard as a saying, but I recently learned that it's not that popular of a saying. Maybe it's like a southern thing, I don't know. Ooh, a lovely Contaminate. I like it, I like it. Contaminate, you know, one of the easier things to physically do, but one of the harder things to actually remember and do consistently. Yeah, the melee being the option as we go into Lurkers is going to look a little funny. Maybe we'll get a second evolution chamber down soon. But the Lurkers, there's some argument to them being kind of like siege tanks, you know, where it's like an upgrade on them is helpful. But if they're in the right place and there's enough of them, that upgrade might not make the biggest of differences. Everything will die anyway. 8 spine crawlers going down, preparing for the run-by defense. Already building spine crawlers over to the left. Lurker ready to help out, maybe? I thought maybe he was going to put it there, but he won't. And Max Pax, well, he's on 4 bases. Not quite, actually. He's getting to 4 bases because the Ling's got to cancel on the last one. It's not the ideal scenario for a Protoss, but Raynor knows that he's got to keep Max Pax under his thumb. He can't get too complacent. He can't get too comfortable. He can't just be the defender, because that's when Max Pax takes control of the map, does a little bit of this, right? Does a little bit of the push and prod, and then builds up a Stargate army behind it. So this is Raynor trying to get on top of the army at this point, going for us around. Storm's coming down every which way that we look. The Ling's trying to dance around them. Lurkers not really impacting the battle so much. Fantastic stasis trap on them. But this was still good enough. Better than good enough, actually. Majority loss there for Raynor was Lings. Which he can't replace easily in terms of Larva, but he can replace with money. 90 drones, very consistent income, and then if Larva is an issue, Hydras, Lurkers, good resource dumps. Little run-by did cause a bit of a distraction, one that is easily and quickly taken care of as the Lurkers finalized as well. We're going to have 14 Lurkers with their range and their burrow speed. heading on over after killing so much of Max Pax's army. Max Pax hoping for more time or at least some damage done. Runs into 5 spine crawlers. Doesn't seem too promising. Maybe he'll just shift click on the drones and hope that it does a decent amount of damage. But Raynor, he is maxed out. He's getting richer. His army composition is actually very cost efficient at this point now that we're no longer Ling based. Speaking of cost efficiency, he is even slightly winning in that department. Zealots just actually ran past the 5th. Is that what happens? And arrived at the natural? I don't even know how they got there. Maybe they came in from this warp prism. But either way, these run-bys are not doing enough. Raynor is not budging on the Lurker attack. One Tempest is out, but that is it for now. Do we have Frenzy available? No. We also just don't have any Hydras on the front lines, but the Tempest can't kill all of this fast enough. Nexus is going to go down. Max Pax thrown back down to 3 bases as his 5th is not even halfway done. A secondary army is ready to tackle that as well, and Raynor looking very sharp in ZVP. Looking EWC form is what he's doing. That's what he's looking at. One last storm before... Oh, well, there's no more. There's a lot more High Templars, actually. A lot more, but their storms are not killing the Lurkers. They are getting bits of damage. They aren't killing them. Still so many Lurkers to tackle. Raynor does need to consider dealing with Tempest in the near future, so he is building a Spire. But he likes the aggression so far. His Lurkers are still holding up. They're not dying quickly enough, and he is finding more and more damage. That defense has gone down. Units are getting pulled into the AI is getting pulled into the Lurkers. Probe's starting to go down. 3rd base could go down. The 5th was already denied, and Max Pax is poor. He's broke. He's trying desperately to fit in as many Tempests as he can. That's the only reason that he has, I think, a bank, is because he's just waiting on Tempest. Nothing else. Hoping that Tempest will win him the game, but by the time he gets to enough Tempest to start to really scare these Lurkers, which is actually about now, actually, but the point is we still have Corruptors possible now. The Spire is done. Bit of a bank here for Raynor. Worst case scenario, he runs away. And that gives him the time to build an anti-air army. Because I guess he's not going to go for Corruptors. He figures the Hydras might do the trick. Frenzy is on the way, which will help out. Maybe a Viper or 2. Could also make sure the Tempest and Mothership actually die. This should be a killing blow. Raynor should feel comfortable winning this game. Maybe he grabs a 6th. Maybe he... I think that's the only thing he can really do. He grabs a 6th, and he grabs an Ultralisk Cavern. Don't think he's going to need it. Oh, there's a 6th. Witch Thespian, that makes sense. But it is unlikely that Max Pax makes the comeback happen. I think Raynor should still be very scared of the storms, since his anti-air is still Hydras. And that is very vulnerable to storms. Sees no 4th base anywhere. Warp Prism looks to buy some time, but, you know, this is expensive for Max Pax. He's so broke. Even leaving these 4 Zealots behind is quite the investment gone. Can't even get a full warp into the main, even if he had the time to do so. Couple Corruptors being made as all the upgrades start up as well. Now that he's got that done and the bank is really starting to grow, I feel like Raynor might go for an attack soon. You know, like the longer he waits, the more that Max Pax could be maxed out, technically, but on 3 bases, that can't be happening very fast. And it's more like the more that he waits, the more that he has second chances. He has bank, he has larva, he has upgrades. So he can go into Mass Corruptor if that is, you know, Tempest are really what's killing him. And the Corruptors even take some time to kill that Warp Prism. 6th, 7th, and 8th base are now on the way. Even a 9th. A cheeky 9th! That is Max Pax's old 4th. Void Rays are on the way as Max Pax is thinking about the Ultimate 8 late-game air army and probably thinking about Corruptors more than Hydras. He actually hasn't seen the army composition, as far as I saw on like the mini-map. So I'm not sure he realizes just how heavily Hydra it still is. But storms, how many do we got? 5 High Templars with a storm. Provided they don't die. Probably scare away most Hydras. Raynor trying to split up. Max Pax anticipated that. Has some army over here. I think that's a High Templar. Not quite with energy yet. Oh, there's a High Templar with energy. It's a good split. It is a good split. Raynor would like for him to just go ahead and give up, though. The longer this game goes on, the more that it is very terrifying to think of a Protoss maxed out with the air army that it has. Not particularly good air upgrades, but still. Raynor's not there yet either. Frenzy to try and catch one of these Tempests. Not quite. On the top side, Stasis Trap helps with a little bit of SimCity as well. Max Pack's not going to give up quite yet. He sees a path to victory still. Raynor taking the very offensive bases, is hoping to mine them out before Max Pax realizes. If he does, I would love the Nidus Worm. You know, that's been incorporated into more and more Zerg play, not just Serral. But Raynor is not getting that quite yet. But that's so useful because that really does open up the opportunity to take the offensive bases in a safe way, rather than saying, oh, well, I'll just replace 20 drones because I'm rich. And it's like, yeah, for a while that works, and then you suddenly have lost in the resource trade, and then you're wondering if you would save 20, 40, 60 extra drones. But we'll get there when we get there. I mean, Raynor is that... He's not really scared of dying yet. He actually has replaced all the army that he was losing in some of these little trades with Corruptors, so he's at 12. Again, no particularly good upgrades on the air armies. This is another avenue of attack that Raynor has over this cliff. That's 11 Lurkers providing a lot of damage. All the army now coming to the front lines. A bunch of Archons hoping to survive the Lurker attacks, but you can see that they're really not. Tempest trying to tear them down. Immortal was trying, but the Nexus will fall. Almost all the Hydras have fallen, but they are being replaced by Corruptors, something that's a little sturdier against the Storms in particular. Zealots, again, trying to get some damage done, but Spines are available. This base, does Max Pax even know about it? He does not know about these bases. And the Lurker as well. They handle that pretty easily, don't they? Max Pax lost a base. How many is he mining from? A half. He's mining a half a base. Eventually, Raynor will tear him down. The fear is that you don't take a very good fight, and then Max Pax is able to counterattack with a maxed out army, and you don't win that fight either. Like, Raynor gets 2 fights, but it is possible that he loses both. Starting to use some Vipers for the Abducts. Hopefully that makes it a little safer to kill these Tempests. Probes going down as they started long distance mining, I suppose. 38 probes saturates the only bases that Max Pax has, though, so don't need to replace them. Raynor gonna refuse to give up this base, and the Rich Vespian with it. Max Pax might have to give up on this idea, with the ledge being so abusable by both the Lurkers and the Corruptors now. He doesn't cancel the base, though, so he's going to try and save it at the last second. He has lost supply. 6,000 resource difference. I actually want to say is not that different from just a minute or two ago. But when you really haven't gotten any resources in the last 2 minutes, it's pretty bad. There's the attempt to go over to the right side. Maybe he'll find this base, too, take it down. Not that it's not really impacting the game, actually, because it's not mining, but... better to take it out, and maybe if you continue to hold on, you will need that base for a 5th. Looks like Max Pax is going to try and go for it. He knows this game is close to over. He's known for a while. He's hoping that Raynor would make bigger mistakes, and Raynor has not. So now he's just going to hope that maybe some aggression favors him. It's going to take so long to really push through everything that Raynor has, though. Unless Raynor is the one that pushes into him. Just goes, whatever, I have enough, blah. But Raynor is, he's learned a little bit, playing a billion ZDPs, and he knows that that would be one way to lose the game. And he say, you know, you come to me. Ling Ultra run-bys will continue pushing you back onto 3 bases, and really 0 bases, as we are starting to mine out. Voiders are a decent response. Yeah, that's a funny thing to it. The Void Rays don't have any upgrade, but that's fine. I mean, they're still close enough to respond. 15 probes, saturating what is like 1,000 minerals left over here. Max Pax decides to go for the attack on a less well-defended base. They will be able to kill it, but this is also already almost mined out, and there are other bases, fresh, healthy bases to mine from. Ling's gonna go after more and more of the actual structures, giving him an alternative win condition. There's the pull. Just go for it. Try and win the game. Fungal, Blinding Cloud, so many lurkers. They do get taken down, but after trading with those Archons and Immortals, and the Corruptors are still alive, 15 of them, with more no doubt being reinforced, Max Pax does finally tap out. GG's. Raynor looks very good. Very good ZVT, very good ZVP. And that'll be it for me, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support today as well. The gifted subs and donations and all that good stuff. So I hope you enjoy your weekend. I'll be back on Monday. I don't know if there is going to be a weekly on the Monday, but if there is, I will cast it. If there is not, we'll cast more replays. And that'll be it for me. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Warning. Philanthropist programs detected in Com Server 04.